I pressed it. Sup? We're live. Hi, everybody. Thanks for
Hi.
joining. Right. uh,
I'm
okay.
just trying to make to like I'm going hard in one direction so that I'm saving everything I've got and also
Mm,
just to, just to really
conserve. Yeah.
impress people also.
Oh, like when
And
you
be
make
like,
that
wow, this
switch.
guy can really turn it on.
Yeah. It's kind
Except
of like,
I'm not
you know,
like
when the
that sure I can follow through, but I'm gonna try.
I mean, it's impressive. It's one of those things. I guess I was about to make an analogy, but it would be like insult. But I don't mean this is an insult. I mean, this is just like, it's just the thing I thought of was like, when a goalie makes like a really awesome save and like to the lay person, it's like, look at this guy. He's such an amazing goalie. Look how and then, but then they're like the smart people, they're like, oh, actually, he wasn't in the right position. And that's
He
why he
was
was
doing the
forced to do
the VHL stands when he shouldn't have been
that's why he had to lunge because if he would have been standing. And so, yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. I thought of that. I was like, sort of like, if you could go from low to high, it's going to seem so impressive. But if you're just like always high, then it's like, yeah, it's just you. So I agree with you. That's a smart strategy. Because Dominic Hasek is like one of the most famous goalies ever. And he was probably
right
out of position all the time.
all the time.
Martin Brodeur, well, he's also pretty famous.
He was
You
in
know,
position all the time.
yeah. How many highlight reel saves does Brodeur have compared to Hasek?
Yeah, a few. I feel like Brodeur, it's usually just like flashing his glove. I think there was like once like he like dove across the crease, but Hashtag like, you pick when you picture him, he's off balance.
When I
Like
picture
by
Hasek, he's like
default.
lying on his back, and then there's a shot up, and he like lifts up his like leg, and it hits like his skate or
Yeah.
something.
Special guy.
Was he just the luckiest? Okay, no, that's a bad take. He was obviously a good goalie, but he must have been pretty
He
lucky.
was legitimately the greatest.
Yeah, I mean,
One
I
of the
guess
greatest.
it's a long career. If it was just one season like that, you'd think maybe he just had a lucky season. But that we don't have advanced stats for that, right? Like like goalies who made saves but they were out of position versus making saves when they were in position, and if like
No, I
what's
don't
because
even
one's
think we
sustainable and one's not,
have
you know.
a whole lot of data from that like historical period either.
But like even
Like 2000
nowadays,
like stats up to like the stats we have now are basically from like 2007.
right?
And
But
then
I
like
mean even
everything
like,
before that is a bit more dark ages.
but like let's say a goalie today, that would be a cool advanced stat of like how many saves did the goalie make where most of the time he wouldn't make that save. You know what I mean? Like sort of just like anyway, whatever. I don't even know what I'm saying.
I think, are you
I'm half.
talking about saves versus expected?
No, because I'm not talking about like where the shot came from. I'm talking about like where the goalie was standing.
Oh,
I
right.
guess. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just stupid. How would you do that? That makes no sense. Maybe one day someone could do something.
No, you could have where the goalie would be expected to be.
Yeah, to have the optimal chance of making the save.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's interesting. Hi, everybody. Who do we got here? Oh, Pete. Oh, my division mate. Pete, are you going to talk about your trade? Come on. You know me, obviously. Why did I make a podcast? The biggest trade of my fantasy career, and I'm just going to like nothing. Nary a mention. Ben, Taylor, Matthew. Remember when we didn't know Schwab Squab's first name? We were rude jerks.
Yeah, it's Corey.
Corey Schwab. Whenever I think of Corey now, I think of Corey from Big Brother. And I have a
And you have
nephew
a
named
nephew named
I have a nephew
Corey.
named Corey. I always think of Corey in America.
I just always think of The Simpsons. Corey. Here's some words that you've called the Corey hotline.
Oh, right.
Here's some words that rhyme with Corey.
What are some gory?
Store. I can't remember. One of them was
Okay.
allegory.
Okay.
Like that was funny. Dude
All
named
right.
Corey.
I guess it's I think we've
Hi
hit
everyone.
I think we could start.
Yeah, let's 10:05 hard stop.
Okay. I have so much good
So
stuff though.
you know what we need to do. I know.
Let's just
You
go
know what we
quick.
need. Okay,
No
but
mention of like even strength versus power play, or no mention of
no,
expected.
that's not
And then
gonna
we'll go so quick.
just skip your analysis, Brian. Let me do the show solo and we'll be done on time. You just sit there listening quietly.
That would be faster.
Okay, you have oh, your list it counted up to like 28 before. No, it doesn't.
I haven't changed anything, but what do you mean? You want to
Oh,
bump
my list.
something?
No, sorry, you're right. You haven't. So we need to finish. Uh we need to get to Ehlers in an hour.
Okay, we can do it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Steelers in an hour. The episode. No, I'm joking.
All right,
Okay.
let's start. That's the best way to get to end quickly is to start. Okay. Yeah! Yes! Welcome everybody to the Trading Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by a guy who may have just breached his contract by trading Erik Karlsson in the cupful. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me to break down everything going on this week, and let me tell you, there's a lot of it. A ton of like high level injuries and outjuries of big names, some interesting hot streaks and cold streaks, and of course, the biggest trade of my fantasy hockey career. It is the fantasy hockey robot, the poop prognostication, the man I'm so excited to talk to right now for the next 2 hours. It's Brian Comp. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, Elon, I'm good. I have nothing to fear, unlike you, after having made that trade. And so I'm very pleased to announce that yes, we are dedicating this entire 2-hour mega show to breaking down the trade. That's it. A very special episode of Keeping Karlsson. And at the end of it, we'll determine whether you'll be back next week.
Okay, sounds good. Well, actually, if you notice my plan, I wanted to ease into it. So I've mentioned, now teased, I traded Erik Karlsson. I also traded Ovechkin. Who did I get back? We'll find out. But Brian, of course, we've got to start with the biggest headlines of the week. And before that, we've got to start with mentioning that we're presented by Dabber Hockey, the #1 fantasy hockey resource out there. They've already analyzed all the big injuries and outjuries of the week. Of course, you got those ramblings every day. I love the tools at Frozen Tools. I use it to prep all the shows. It's the best, dabberhockey.com. But Brian, let's get into it. I guess we have to start right now in Detroit, right? Dylan Larkin is hurt. It's because of your Ottawa Senators that he's hurt. I know that a lot of people are not happy with some things that happened. We
Seems
don't
accusatory of me.
Brian, why did you ask them to hurt this man? Dylan Larkin is a very important player for the Detroit Red Wings. I don't think we have an update yet. The latest I have is still from yesterday, just like he was being evaluated from Detroit's medical staff. He didn't return to the game. So I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something. But in the meantime, obviously that would be a huge impact. I'm trying to think of like who this helps. Like who is the second line center on this team? I guess Comfer. Well, he was injured also in the last game. So yeah, once Larkin went down, we had like, I don't know, Kopp with Fabry and Raymond, Kane with DeBrincat and Joe Veleno. Is Joe Veleno now the top line center? So I don't know. Okay. So we'll have to obviously wait for game day tweets to give us an update on what's going on like in Detroit and what the lines are going to be and how long Larkin is going to be out. In the meantime, we do have some other players. So I'll just mention some things going on in Detroit. Then I don't know, we could try to put this in the context of Larkin being hurt. First of all, Patrick Kane, we talked last week about him signing. We actually got some game action from Patrick Kane. So the first game he played didn't do too much. Then in that second game versus Ottawa, he scored a goal, 7 shots, power play goal. So that's pretty exciting. Maybe that's a sign that Kane is actually back, or like maybe just I don't know, 7-shot game. That's like a vintage. That's better than vintage Patrick Kane. Also, I know a lot of people have been excited about Robbie Fabry, who's really gone on a crazy hot streak lately. Fabry's been getting really great deployment. He's been getting top power play himself. And now with this streak of 8 points in his last 6 games, Fabry's up to 13 points in 14 games on the season. So obviously now things will change. Deployment will change. How are you feeling right now about Kane and Fabry after they've both come back from long times being hurt?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel badly for Larkin. On the last when we talked about Patrick Kane signing in Detroit, I did say like to play with what center, and you were like Dylan Larkin, and I feel like I set something into motion with that comment. But now it's true. Like now there really is, and my concern was that Patrick Kane might not play on the line with Dylan Larkin, and if he doesn't, then who does he play with? Does he play with anybody who can do the work for him that needs to be done? And so far, Patrick Kane coming back and looking real fresh, regardless of who he's playing with. Had a power play goal on 7 shots against Ottawa, played 20 minutes of ice time, which wasn't even like that common for him before the injury in recent history, and is also on power play 1, which Elon, I wonder if the Larkin injury, because the Wings were sort of playing with like a power play. I see someone make a joke that there was like a power play 1.25 and a power play 1.75 in Detroit. Like they were splitting their units and it was hard to tell what's what. But now with Larkin out, I feel like it's going to be pretty easy to tell which one's the top unit. We'll see. But it could be good news for Patrick Kane and anybody else on what ends up being I assume to be the top unit. But yeah, at 5-on-5, Kane has 6 shots, 4 on the power play. Looks good, I guess. Honestly, he looks better than I was going to assume him to look in early NHL action this season, and possibly medium and late. So he's showing me so far. And if nobody rushed to go grab him, because I mean, I said I wasn't like, I would have gotten him if he was available, but I wasn't sad that I didn't get him. But if he was somehow left available in your league, now might be the chance to go grab him.
Yeah. Or I mean, if you have him and you're worried that this is just like, someone really excited to be back and playing, but who knows if he'll be able to hold up. Maybe it's a good time to trade after, a good game, but who knows? It's so hard to predict. We'll circle back on Kane after we get a bit more data. We do have to mention in net, Alex Lyon in Detroit is like continues to roll. We mentioned him last week. You might be like, what is this, a rerun? You talked about Patrick Kane, you talked about Alex Lyon, but like we have to mention at this point, Alex Lyon now has 4 wins, 4 quality starts in his last 5 games. I guess he did take this loss against Ottawa, but that was because Ville Husso got pulled after a bad start, and Husso's been pretty bad. I think overall, like Husso took also the loss in that game against San Jose, where Detroit was winning at the start. Then San Jose came back. They were talking about it during the last short shifts, where as they were recording, San Jose just kept scoring more and more goals until they ended up winning that game. So yeah, I think I've been seeing Husso dropped all over the place. I think at this point, Brian, is it fair to say if you have Husso, you're probably snoozing unless it's like the deepest of deep leagues?
Yeah, I mean, Lyon lost the last game. He stopped 21 of 25 against Ottawa on Saturday, but that really was a blemish relative to everything else that Lyon has done this year already.
Yeah, and like I said, Brian, like that was after Husso got pulled to start that game. So I kind of feel like it's I don't ever like to really blame a goalie.
Yeah. So we can forgive that, but right. So we can forgive it, but even accounting that in all his numbers, like Alex Lyon has been really great this season. He's actually already second in quality starts amongst Detroit goalies with 4 quality starts. And that's just in, I think 5 or 6 starts versus Husso, who has 5 quality starts. So 1 more quality start than Lyon, but in 14 starts, Lyon had given up just 5 goals against at 5-on-5 through 6 games, 12 goals against total. So yeah, Elon, I think why keep trotting Ville Husso out there when games still matter for Detroit at this point? Like there's no foregone conclusion about how things are going to go with the wild card race. So why not try and throw your hat in there? And Husso in net doesn't seem to be helping them as much as Lyon. So yes, if you're looking for a goalie, Alex Lyon could be it.
Yeah, I think like lesson number 1 is for sure drop Husso and then probably also grab Lyon. Like maybe it could end up being 50-50. Like obviously Husso has the contract, so I'm not saying guaranteed Lyon's going to be worth holding, especially in a league like a cupful where volume, really helps. But I think at the very least, I think we are looking at 50-50 or better for Lyon, at least for the next stretch. I guess also, I said last week that I'm going to start sprinkling in Trev's accountability feedback to us. So he's been getting back to us with stuff that happened that we said like a month ago on the show to like look back and see how it's shaking out. And so I'll sprinkle that in as we go. We said a month ago on a show that Shane Gostisbehere is likely to be like a 50-point power play 1 defense with met peripherals rather than the 60+ point guy that he started the season with. Like overall, it actually looks like we were wrong. Like, he's has, a 74-point pace or something crazy since we did that. But I still kind of feel good about it just because if it's very much like we said the last time we talked about Gostisbehere, it's very much like he'll have one insane game and then he'll go cold for a bit. Right now, he's on a streak of 1 point in his last 6 games. I'll bet you, so that means a 3-point game is coming for Gostisbehere. But overall, I think he's the same, like sort of not fringe, but like, barely above replacement, maybe defenseman that we thought he'd be.
Yeah, Gostisbehere's flaky. Like he's unreliable. Just 11 shots in his last 10 games. So even if Gostisbehere had like 6 assists in those 10 games or goal and 5 assists, whatever, I'd still I still wouldn't have him locked in on my roster. It'd be like, yeah, that's good, but you're not doing anything else. And that's not terribly helpful to me, depending on your format. And Elon, like you said, Gostisbehere, 75% of his production this season has come in just 5 games of the 25 he's played.
That's crazy.
So if you didn't have him during those 5 games, you've hated him. And if you did have him for those 5 games and you kept him, well, you might still hate him. So yeah, I think Gostisbehere remains fringy and a great 1 or 2 game stream option in the hopes that he'll have the 6th big game of his season. But otherwise, and also the power play situation, Elon, if it does sort of fall or shake out the way I expect it to now that Larkin's out, that the Wings might consolidate a top unit. Keep an eye out, because if Gostisbehere isn't on it, then that's even less opportunity for him to score. Also, Elon, before we move on, I just wanted to mention Fabry, because you brought him up and I don't think I commented. 6 goals on Fabry's last 12 shots, 3 on the power play, 3 at 5-on-5. He did have 3 assists and 2 shots only in his last 3 games. That includes no shots for 2 games straight for Robbie Fabry. So he's hot, but I'm gonna call it fleeting. But it's been a while since, like, Fabry used to do this every so often, and I feel like he went most of last season not doing it when we thought he actually had an opportunity to. So it's nice to see him get hot, because I've missed a good old Robbie Fabry hot streak in my life every now and again.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you, Brian. Yeah, probably now's a good time to, like, you could grab him and try to ride it out, but I wouldn't be like trading for him or anything like that. Okay, over to Buffalo. A big outjury. Tage Thompson is back. All my fellow Team Jordan people with Tage Thompson, very exciting, because not only did he come back, but he came back to the right wing on the top line. And Yahoo was like decided to be generous. Sometimes they make you wait forever, like with Cole Perfetti. With Tage Thompson, it was like a game. They're like, take it. Take the RW. It's like, oh man, I went from a situation where I was worried I had too many centers to, like, boom, golden now. Right wing Tage Thompson. So that's nice. Also nice that he's done pretty well since he's come back. 3 games, 3 points. I'll take it. Obviously back on the top power play. He's been on a top line without Alex Tuck, because Tuck has been injured. So it's been Casey Middlestat there, centering Thompson and Skinner. And then those 3 are also on the top power play lately with Cousins and Rasmus Dahlin. So, everyone's good, including, by the way, Casey Middlestat now is becoming a guy who, like, I mentioned it, I think, on yesterday's matchup maximizer, and I actually got a tweet, Brian, that, like, I was saying, like, I can't believe Middlestat's only rostered in whatever it is, like 15-20% of leagues, and in Cupful it's 100%, and I feel like anyone who's in a league where he's not rostered, like, isn't in a serious, that was actually, like, I was told that was kind of a silly thing to say, because there are shallow leagues. I didn't consider that. Yeah, obviously, like, Casey Middlestat at some point isn't worth rostering if we're talking about like a 10-team league or something. But yeah, if you're in a league where I don't know, 60 plus, 65, maybe 70 point guy, like, I don't know, he's been really good. So, and now that Thompson is back, if Middlestat's going to be with Thompson top line, like, on even strengthen on the power play, I like him a lot.
Yeah, Middlestat. It's really funny to see him next to Tage Thompson. This doesn't happen often. Going back to the 21-22 season, Middlestat has only played 115 total minutes with Thompson. That's 7% of his total time on ice. And yes, you will only hear that on Keeping Karlsson. That's how we try and stay relevant. So I'm curious to see how long this lasts, because we don't know. We don't know how this story plays out. This is brand new, even though they've been on the team long enough that you'd think they would have played together. They haven't. And Middlestat responded really well in his first game alongside Thompson. Season high 5 shots and 27 minutes on Saturday night against Montreal. I'm not sure. Like I said, we haven't seen this one before, so I'm not sure what to make of it all, but I will be watching. And Elon, like you said, while we're watching, 5 shots, 27 minutes playing with Tage Thompson. If he's out there, you got to go see if he does deserve a spot on your roster.
Okay, and yeah, since we're in Buffalo here, let's take a look in net. So Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who we were really high on a recent show, and for good reason. Luukkonen's been really good, but he went ill. They called Devin Levi back up, and Levi is doing a lot better than he did to start the year. Like, we came into the season, Levi was getting all the starts, so it was looking like the Sabres were planning on just, like, rolling him as their starter, and he wasn't up to the task. It was a little bit disappointing. He went to the minors. He had that really good start in the AHL, like a shutout. I forget the day. I remember I saw some tweets about how Levi was looking really good. Anyways, he's come back 2 games, 3 goals against in those games, just both 30 plus shots against games. So Levi's really holding his own. And now it'll be interesting, right? Because UPL will come back, who was also doing pretty well. I don't know what's going to happen, because on one hand, I would think it's probably just be 50-50, especially after the coach, or maybe it'll still be UPL as a starter, right? Because the coach came out and said, like, he's really impressed with Luukkonen. On the other hand, this is what they wanted, right? They wanted Levi to be the starter. So I have no idea what's going to happen in net for Buffalo.
Me neither. And it's funny because all of a sudden, like, Buffalo, a team that could not buy a good goaltending game earlier in the season, is now, like, with this embarrassment of possible riches. We'll still say potential riches with Devin Levi, who's had a series of good starts now, but Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has also had several good starts. Luukkonen's been on a roll, really. 9-14 in 6 starts and 1 relief appearance in the last month, going back to November 11th, and really just 1 dud amongst those 7 appearances. The rest have been either good or really good. You might not have noticed because Luukkonen just has a 500 record to show for all the good goaltending he's put up. But here Buffalo is. Yeah, they've been looking for good goaltending all season long. They have Levi and Luukkonen. And I wonder, Elon, like I feel like Levi's going to start until he's not good enough. Like I think a healthy Luukkonen won't necessarily be enough unless the Sabres like feel like they need to, like for roster management reasons, they need to make a roster move and send Levi down. But I could see Levi starting until he stumbles and then Luukkonen starting until he stumbles. And we'll see if either of these guys can keep it up or if they fall into the habits that they had for the first month of the season.
Yeah, it's so hard to predict. These are such young goalies, right? They're still learning. Anything could happen. Speaking of goalies, we have Jacob Markstrom in Calgary. He's out week to week with a fractured finger. So you'd think this opens up an opportunity. The question is for who, right? So we have Dan Vladar, who has been the backup all season, has been pretty weak. And in the games he's gotten since the injury, there was one game against Minnesota where he didn't do very well at all. 3 goals against on 16 shots. Looks like he got pulled. So yeah, he's been bad. So Dustin Wolf, the guy who we were really excited about going into the early. So I remember I wasn't. All the prospect people are. He's been so great in the minors, and Wolf is now going to get this opportunity. I think this is what we were waiting for. Kind of, if you were a Wolf person, of course, is a Wolf. Is that what we can call ourselves? The Wolf fans, the Wolf people,
a lupine.
The lupine clan. What do you call a group of wolves? You know, there's like all like different words for groups of animals.
A pack.
A pack? Oh, obviously. Ugh, I'm an idiot. Okay. There's funnier ones for like bunnies or something like that. But anyhow, Wolf has been like, okay, like not insane. He had that one really good game against Carolina. Aside from that, it's 3 of his other starts have been sub 900 save percentages. Still think he's better than Dan Vladar though. So I personally would vote Wolf. There was like Trev was asking for us to look into a bunch of like goalie tandem situations and give our take as to who's like the one who's ahead. Like with Buffalo, I'm like, I have no idea. With Calgary, I think if they want to win games, they should play Wolf as much as they can while Markstrom's out. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'll share mine in a second, right after I mention that a group of bunnies is called a fluffle. And I feel like this should be like our Cupful mascot. Should be a fluffle of bunnies.
I would love that.
The Cupful fluffles. The Cup fluffles. That'd be great. We could have a little bunny bowl, like the super dot, like the puppy bowl.
Puppies, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember, right, the Calgary goalies. They've both been bad at 5-on-5 so far, but Dustin Wolf has looked better lately, and Dan Vladar has like never looked good, unfortunately. And Wolf in the AHL, 920 save percentage in 14 games with the Wranglers of the American Hockey League. So between Wolf and Vladar, I'm going to go with the guy who has less of a track record of sucking, which is Dustin Wolf, only because he has less of a track record, period. But I feel, and this isn't to put down Dustin Wolf really, but it's just to say, look, we have 2 guys who have not proven themselves reliable at the NHL level. But the thing is that I feel more confident I know who Vladar is than I do Dustin Wolf. So I'm willing to grant Dustin Wolf some room to show me what he can do, whereas Vladar would take longer to convince me that he can actually hold down a number 1 or 1A or 1B job in the NHL based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and I think like Devon Levi is giving us a good sample of like a goalie who, super high pedigree, struggled a little bit, but he's a high pedigree guy for a reason. He's been good for all these years, not to all of a sudden like totally become a dud in the NHL. And I don't think anyone thinks Wolf is going to be a dud. It's obviously just like right now, like how long is it going to take him? But it's a great opportunity. Hopefully Calgary and Calgary really needs him to step up because like you said, Brian, we know what Vladar is, and it's not going to be someone who's going to help them win a lot of games. Interesting on defense, by the way, I'll mention it. Rasmus Andersson has been off the top power play for a while, so it's been Hannafin and Uyghur. So yeah, sorry, I should say Hannafin's been off both power plays. Like he hasn't been getting power play time at all, which you'd think would be really bad for him. So of course, fantasy hockey being what it is and being so unpredictable and challenging. So of course, Rasmus Andersson is now on a 4-game point streak, 4 points in his last 4 games. Like I would have thought he's like a drop, if he's not getting any power play time. Tell me some defensemen in the league. There's not that many that don't get power play time and are still worth holding, and usually it's high peripheral guys like a Jacob Trouba or something. So somehow Rasmus Andersson's on this streak. Any chance? I mean, the thing is, like, there's a chance he could also get the top power play back or a power play back. But assuming he doesn't, there's no way he can keep this up, right?
Well, Rasmus Andersson still is not a terrible peripheral play. right? So even if he doesn't keep up this point streak with no power play deployment, and it is virtually no power play deployment lately for Rasmus Anderson, he's still, he'll throw a few block. He'll get a couple of few. Oh my gosh, he'll get a few blocks. He'll throw a hit or two, and he'll take a shot or two each night, which is like that's something. And Elon, the point that what you said about maybe Anderson does get back on the top power play, I think is quite prescient. Because Calgary has been they're just 2 for 16 on the power play over 6 games since Rasmus Anderson lost that top power play quarterback role. Now, with him quarterbacking the power play, they were 1 for their prior 29. So 2 for 16 is actually an improvement over that. But the Calgary power play still struggles. And I wonder if this is, if a moment comes soon where the coaching staff is like, yep, wasn't him. And then he gets to come back on and they try bumping somebody else off. But as for the point, like if Anderson doesn't end up back on the top power play, obviously don't expect these points to come. Anderson has 4 points on 10 Calgary goals scored in the last 4 games. So I wouldn't expect him to keep pointing on 40% of all the goals Calgary scores, let alone the ones that he's on the ice for. But I'm hoping he's on the ice for a few more if he does get a bump up to the top unit again, and then things click. I hope. That's just a hope.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I have Hannafin right now, so I kind of hope it stays the same. But also, I hope that Hannafin could help that power play get some points, so he could actually be worth holding. We'll see. Let's go to our next goalie injury. We've got like a couple more big goalie injuries. You know what, Brian? Why don't we take a quick break, take our breath? I think we're on a great clip right now. I think we're going to get through everything we had planned. If we can keep going at this pace, we'll see if we can do it. You'll find out in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, we are back. Thank you for listening to the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We are talking about some big injuries and outjuries. We've got another big one over in Toronto because Joseph Woll is out week to week with a high ankle sprain. This is not good for the Leafs because Woll had stolen the job from Ilya Samsonov. Was playing all the time, having a good season, like 916 save percentage. Finally, the Leafs getting some good goaltending. Now they have to go back to Samsonov, who's really struggled this year. He's been he's been terrible, right? Until yesterday, he had a good game, which is like I'm sure a big sigh of relief for Leafs fans after seeing Woll got injured. Samsonov came in; they didn't even know if he was going to play. Right? He was like ill for a bit. They had to call up Martin Jones. Could you imagine if Martin Jones was having to start games for the Leafs? But no, Samsonov came in and put up a cool 18 save shutout against the Nashville Predators. So that gives you at least a little bit of confidence that he's ready to go. And I think, yeah, with Jones as the backup, they're going to really have to lean on Samsonov, who has an 886 save percentage on the year, even with that shutout. But I guess the obvious thing is like if Samsonov's a free agent, you have to jump on him without even thinking about it, right, Brian?
Yeah, especially if wins matter, right? He's playing for one of the best teams in the league. And even if he's not going to be great, there's still a decent chance he comes away with the win and has a decent goals against average. So yeah, while Samsonov hasn't been great, there is no one to push him. And I mean that. Like I know Martin Jones is there. He hasn't, even based on last year's sample in Seattle, still didn't quite look like an NHL goalie in that stretch. So that's why you got to go.
Seattle?
You got it. Martin Jones.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. Did you skip Columbus on purpose?
Yeah, I just decided to I just changed the order because goalie. Okay. I'm doing goalie injuries, so I figured I'll keep it up.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay. Oh, so you're done. Okay, so I could just continue. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, Brian, I do need to eat some crow here. We had one of our accounts. So again, I'm going to be throwing these in throughout. It's from a show from a month ago. On that show, Trev points out that we were talking about Toronto goalies. You said that Woll is more likely to get more starts. I put my chip on Samsonov, and you were right. And I was wrong. But now it's Samsonov again. So it turns out you should have listened to me the whole time.
That's not. Okay. All right.
Would you rather have right now?
Okay. Very good. Yeah, you got me. Okay.
Next goalie injury over in Seattle, you just brought up. I'm sure even with Grubauer now hurt, I think they're still happy to not have Martin Jones. But yeah, this is not a good situation for the Kraken. Not like Grubauer has been great, but he's been in this tandem with Decord, and now I guess Seattle has to depend on Joey Decord. They've called up Chris Drieger, who was good at one point. So yeah, the latest on Grubauer is like not very good. apparently, so there's a tweet just from today here from Sound Hockey. Haxall chatted with the media for a few minutes ago, didn't give much of a timetable on Grubauer, and just said he'd have more info in a couple of days. But then this person wrote, that doesn't sound good to us. So I don't know. Maybe this person knows the coach and knows that when he says it's going to take a couple days to get more info, that's not good. So yeah, Brian, I guess same question about Samsonov, but now to Joey Decord. Is he like a must grab, like for sure a starter? Or because don't forget that Chris Drieger was like a guy that was signed for a decent contract before they were able to get Grubauer in the first place. So I do wonder if maybe Decord isn't like the most sure thing to be like volume, like maybe they go like 50-50 and ride a hot hand. And Decord has been like okay, but not amazing, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. Joey Daccord has played up to his name, which is okay, but not amazing. Daccord has looked decent at 5-on-5, but he shows up as inconsistent on the score sheet. And you also, with Seattle, you have to sort of worry about low shot volume and also like lack of commitment to a starting goalie, which was basically been the case. If your name's not Philip Grubauer and you're not on that contract, Seattle hasn't committed to anyone else getting a really significant stretch of games at any point for any reason. So yeah, Elon, I think if Decord continues to just be Decord, then we should expect to see some games from Driedger, which makes Decord not like an automatic ad for anyone desperate for volume starts.
Okay, and next up, Brian, we have another big injury over in Columbus. I know you're really annoyed about this one. It's hitting you close to home on your Cupful team. Boone Jenner out 6 weeks with a fractured jaw. That stinks, right? Jenner has been having like such a great season. I guess like a career year for the guy, right? Like 18 points in 29 games, 13 goals. I guess actually similar to last year, except like a lot more goals. As 13 goals and only 5 assists. But yeah, Columbus also has just been struggling. So like losing this big piece, their number one center, can't be good for them. Can't be good for people in fantasy. The Jackets did play today. They lost 5-2 to Florida. So I don't know how much you want to read into line combinations because you'd imagine they're going to probably go through some blenders until they try to figure something out. They were rolling Line and Gaudreau together. That's fun to see with Justin Danforth and then Voronkov, Marchenko, Chinnikov. They're keeping that line of all Russians together. They've been pretty good. Chinnikov had a goal today. And then Fantilli now, I guess, on the third line with Kent Johnson and Emil Bemstrom. I don't know. Does anyone benefit from this, or is this just like all pain? I guess Justin Danforth, if this sticks, though, of course, Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine have had their own struggles this season, so it's not like as exciting as it sounds just by name value. But I guess again, it might not even stick, so no point digging too deep into it. But it's a good spot, you would think, being with Laine and Gaudreau, right?
Yeah, it is. I just don't know. Like we're not going to dig in too deep to whether Danforth is going to stay there, and even if he does, I've brought up his name a couple times as being like one of the hottest players that we didn't even talk about to start the year, just because he was getting 10 minutes a night, had 3 goals in his first 5 games on 10 shots, and then and an assist. All right. But then, hasn't done a whole lot since. So, Elon, even if he hangs out with this line, he's still not someone I'm racing to. Are we at the end of the stretch of like, how many more weeks is it where we're trying to get Columbus for their schedule?
I think we're about done. And actually, Shams is saying, by the way, that the lines changed mid-game. Now I'm seeing a tweet about that. So now it's Fantilli went on the line with Gaudreau and Bemstrom, and then Line was playing with Danforth and Kent Johnson. They broke up the Russians. Oh no, the Russians stayed together. I don't know. Anyway, who knows what's going to happen with Columbus? But yeah, I think at this point, Brian, we can forget about their schedule. I think someone could correct me in the chat here, but I know next week it's not that good. Next week they only play Thursday, Saturday. So I mentioned on Matchup Maximizer that it's going to be hard. Like even like Adam Fantilli, who's been hot for a long time recently, he didn't do anything today, but he's been good. But I wonder, like, do you really hold Fantilli just for Thursday, Saturday? I don't know. I don't think so. Especially
I don't think so either. Yeah, you can hold Liney. All right, Jenner's in IR. You can hold Werenski, and you could hold Gaudreau.
Well, let's talk about Gaudreau quickly. Yeah. Actually, we have an accountability drop here as well. So a month ago, we were talking about Gaudreau's slow start. And I guess the take was that it's mostly bad luck and he'll be fine as long as the coach isn't benching him. This did not turn out to be fine. He only is averaging 2.77, a couple points per game for a 43-point pace. You did say on the show that it's like the caveat being if the coach benches him or takes away his minutes, but I don't think like Gaudreau has been benched since then. I think he's just been not great. But it's like Columbus hasn't been great. But I don't know. At this point, we can't just blame Columbus. We have to blame ourselves for continuing to think that these guys will do stuff.
Yeah, we can blame Johnny Gaudreau. I think you still hold him, but I've seen a lot of. I think back then, yeah, we were sort of allowing for the possibility of like a new system, new coach, new pieces, working it out, and giving Gaudreau a little room to run. And he's done nothing with that room to run. We've given Johnny Gaudreau a lot of unimpressive numbers through his underlings, both for him and Elon, you said for his teammates too. Like Columbus just is not a pretty team. And for Gaudreau, yeah, there's some bad variants, but it does not explain away everything. So for now, if you have Gaudreau and you're still wondering, like, is he going to get back to his 70-point self, 76-point pace last season? My answer is no, he's not. He's worse than we'd hoped, and we're now waiting to see a turnaround, but I'm not convinced that one is going to happen. And I would probably have him, it sounds funny as he's on a 41-point pace and has only pointed twice in his last 8 games, and has only taken 1 shot each in his last 3 games. But I would have Gaudreau like 55, 60 points is about what I'd be hoping for from him right now. And even that, based on all that I just said, seems like a bit of a climb.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's really what we think, then maybe he is a safe drop going into next week for only a Thursday, Saturday, 2 busy days, especially Saturday. I mean, at the very least, maybe you drop him, let him try to get him back like on Wednesday, and then if someone else takes him, you're like, it wasn't going to be that good anyway. Yeah, it's disappointing. These former Flames, even Matthew Tkachuk isn't doing that great this year, which we'll get to him later. There's some sort of a curse here that either you go to Calgary, you leave Calgary, you're not the same as you used to be. But okay, let's go to another injury here because we're not done. We got a lot of these. This has been a sad week. It was good about Tage Thompson, though. That was nice, that outjury. But back to the injuries here. Thomas Chabot is on LTIR for the Sens. He's going to be out a while. He's had a really rough year of injury trouble. In Chabot's absence, at least in the last game, Brian, we finally got a chance to see Jacob Chychrun on the top power play. And when I say top power play, I mean he played 50%, but hey, he had 2 power play assists in that game. Chychrun also had an assist in the previous game, so that's now 3 points in 2 games for Chychrun, which is nice to see because before that he was pointless for 7 straight. Is it just a case where like Chabot being out, that's what's going to trigger Chychrun to break out of this funk because now he's just going to get all this extra responsibility? Or is it like, maybe people think this and now's like a great opportunity to trade Chychrun and get something good for him because he's like just coming off the super cold streak. He's still not shooting like I would have liked him to see, like, based on what we saw in previous years.
Yeah, Chychrun broke a 7-game pointless streak and now has 3 points in 2 games. And Elon, like, I don't think his deployment changed drastically with or without Chabot. So there's that. He is actually down below 20 minutes a night for 4 consecutive games. That had only happened like twice in Chychrun's first 17, 18 outings this season. So Chychrun is actually seeing a bit of a decreased responsibility. And I wonder if, I don't know exactly what's going on and if the hope, because he started off the season, he was supposed to eat 20 to 25 minutes a night. And with Chabot out, you'd think that would be an opportunity for him to do it. So I'm not sure if they're trying to work on his game or what, but Chychrun, and I think that's one of the reasons, Elon, that he's not putting up the peripherals you'd hope for, but it is nice. And yeah, maybe because Chabot's out, Chychrun feels like he's got to contribute a little more to the offense, and this is it. So we'll see if that theory bears out, but I would like to see him get back over and above the 20-minute a game mark soon.
Okay, yeah. And by the way, also in Ottawa, there's Jake Sanderson, right, who didn't get above 50% of the power play time for the first time in a while in that game versus Detroit. That might be a score effect thing also. Who knows? Like, Ottawa ran away with that game. Sanderson was also super cold for a while before finally getting points in his last couple of games. The thing with Sanderson, yeah, I have an analogy for you. I'm actually curious. I gotta, who would you rather? And also, do you agree that they're kind of similar in terms of fantasy value? I see Sanderson as kind of like a Noah Hannafin. Like, he gets top power play a lot, but even when he gets it, he hasn't been like so incredible. Like, every once in a while, he has a good game. Sometimes he gets some good block numbers. Yeah. So who do you like better? And are you with me that maybe the Sanderson is the Hannafin of the Ottawa Senators? At least for now. I think in the future, Sanderson is higher upside.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you're trying to feel better about presently having Noah Hannafin by making this comparison. Like, maybe I'd go like Mackenzie Weegar or Mikhail Sergachev. Like
Oh
Sanderson,
wow.
like Hannafin is like, yeah, like you said, Hannafin has limited upside. Sanderson doesn't right now, but I see where they're, comparable. Sanderson's useful. He's on the ice a ton. He can get the breakout going, make some smart plays, but clearly the offense isn't really going through him at the moment. So interesting comparison, Elon, just to say 35, 40 points, kind of inconsistent peripherals. But the difference between Sanderson and Hannafin is the potential for more.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Also, Trev wanted us to talk about the goalie situation in Ottawa. I guess we talk about it a lot. It seems like, Brian, you're usually like probably Korpisalo just runs away with it. He had a good game versus Detroit. He was weak before that. Forsberg had a couple good games. He had a shutout, but then he wasn't so good in his last game versus Toronto. So it just seems like maybe just Ottawa's a tough team to be a goalie for.
I feel like there's this impression that Forsberg is like poised to steal the job. And I don't think that Forsberg is poised to steal a job. I think Forsberg is poised to steal a start or two starts here and there. But if you're ever sort of jumping on Forsberg because you think he's about to take over, I don't think that's going to happen. And Forsberg at 5-on-5 has actually been mostly bad this year. Over the last 2 years, Forsberg has been average at 5-on-5. I think maybe he's a 1B, but he certainly doesn't seem up for a number 1 or even a 1A job, which to me, means Korpisalo's job is safe. So anytime, like if you have Korpisalo on your roster and you see Forsberg getting a couple start, consider it an annoyance, but not a legitimate threat.
Yeah, but you might still just be annoyed that Korpisalo hasn't been that good for you, and that we can't promise will get that much better, unfortunately.
True. Although
By the way,
I've you know what I've said about him, right? Which is that he's actually looked better than I would have given him credit for at 5-on-5, but is getting wrecked while killing penalties, and I expect that to even out. So hopefully he can just keep the 5-on-5 stuff going when the short-handed save percentage does regress to where we'd expect it.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe Ottawa could just stop taking penalties. That would help too.
Brilliant.
So I guess I should mention we have a positive here on the accountability. A month ago, Drake Batherson was just breaking out of a cold streak. And Brian, you said on the show it might be the last time you could buy low on him. And you were definitely right, because in the past 30 days, Batherson has averaged almost 6 couple points per game, 8 point per game pace. He's been incredible. So for anyone who got him for cheap after his slow start, congrats. You're enjoying yourself right now.
Thank God. I needed that to happen. And I think part of Lewis said something funny. I can't remember it on the last short shifts. It was like he was talking about like the lens of his thinking, but it was like some kind of optimistic whatever. That's what I was doing with Batherson. I was trying to just I couldn't face the possibility that it couldn't be true.
Okay.
So good.
And here it is.
I have Batherson. I needed him.
Tell.
As a right winger to step it up. And so that's great. Woohoo.
Woohoo. Okay, next injury. Ryan Pulock is hurt from the Islanders. Not very fantasy relevant, but I did want to talk about the Islanders anyway. First of all, Anders Lee is still hot. He's still playing with Barzal, who's like super red hot. So I think we said last week that we're like getting more and more into Anders Lee, and at this point, he might be taken. And if not, I would take a look. The Islanders have a great schedule next week. I think I made him one of my top streamers for next week. So definitely grab Anders Lee. And if you can't get him, and if you're desperate for D, I'm just going to say this because I know otherwise Jeremy's going to be bringing him up on the next show because he's apparently the biggest Mike Riley fan. But Mike Riley is now on the New York Islanders. He's played 8 games, but in the last 3 of them, he's got 4 points. Mike Riley looking good. And so he's got some shots. He's got some hits. He's been on the second power play. He's going to probably stay on the second power play now that Pulock is hurt for a while. So can't guarantee that he'll even stay in the lineup. But if he does, like, the vibes on Twitter are good also. I just searched for Mike Riley and Isles, and there's a lot of people like, Riley's like been the best player on the team. Like, what a brilliant acquisition. Like, everyone stinks but him, so people are liking him. So that's a name for you.
There's a name, Mike Riley. It's like a really generic name too. M. Riley isn't even there's other fancy relevant M. Riley spelled differently. 14 goals for the Islanders in their last 3 games, and Riley has cashed in with 4 points on those. That's nice, but I'm not expecting like, everyone loves him. Mike Riley is this guy who I think people love as like, yeah, he plays hockey the right way, like with sandpaper, and he's got a nose for the net, and like as a defenseman even. So I feel like that might be the sort of narrative here. We saw him in Ottawa for a little while, and yeah, he's like a likable guy, but not a top pairing player. And he's only playing like, and that bears out in Long Island. Mike Riley's playing just 15 minutes a night. That said, he's shooting and blocking a ton for just 15 minutes a night. So I will take that nice peripheral floor and see if the points do happen to continue somehow. But I also won't hold my breath.
Okay, then let's go to an ouchery in Nashville. Tommy Novak is back, which should be exciting, except it's like maybe he needed more time because his first 2 games back versus Tampa and Toronto, no goals, no assists, no shots, no hits, no blocks. We call that a cardio game over in the patron Discord, where we have a whole channel where Kevin has set it up where every day we get to find out which players that are rostered in at least one couple division got 0 fantasy points. And yeah, it's not nice when you see a player show up there twice. Nashville's playing today, not a cardio. 2 shots on goal for Tommy Novak so far versus Montreal. Neither of them have gone in the net. So still not looking that great. He was looking so good to start the year. Before these 3 games and before the injury, we were looking at 12 points in 14 games for Tommy Novak. So it's hard for me to just give up on him. I just wonder if maybe he's not fully himself, or what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, well, after those 2 straight cardio sessions, was definitely wondering. I like that, you mentioned he has 2 shots against Montreal, which who doesn't? But he's done it in just 8 minutes of ice so far. So that piece is promising. What would be more promising is if Novak plays more than 14 minutes tonight, which he hasn't done since coming back from injury, even though Novak was seeing 17, 18 minutes a night on average before getting hurt. And before getting hurt, Novak had 10 points in 9 games, including 4 goals on 15 shots. So I feel like, yeah, maybe Novak was a little hotter than we could have expected him to keep up. But also, I am hopeful that this is Novak easing back in. And maybe to that end, Elon, maybe you're right that he came back a little too soon. I don't know. Like I said, I'm eager to see him play more than 14 minutes a night. And once he does that, I'm ready to buy in again. But until then, I will be at least a little wary. But if he was dropped and you're in a deep enough league, I like Tommy Novak enough to want to just go for it.
Yeah, Shams is mentioning in the chat that he was, and it's true, he was like getting like really good deployment before he got hurt. He was like on the top power play for a bit. So yeah, maybe it's just a matter of him having to earn that back, but I think he's had a good enough sample of being good. I don't think he's all of a sudden like terrible now. So I agree with you, Brian, that rarely but sometimes you recommend someone in free agency who's like ice cold, and maybe next time Nashville has a good schedule, if he's out there, I would take a look, because I think it'll be just a matter of time. At the end of the day, he is still Tommy Novak, who's like a year ago, I think still like no one really knew who he was. It was only like in the second half of last season where he really took off, but it's been really great since then. So we'll see. Okay, one last injury that I'll mention here. Pavel Zacha was hurt in the middle of Boston's last game. I don't think we have an update on that one either, unfortunately. So maybe on short shifts on Tuesday, the crew over there will give us an update. Yeah, just he won't return to the game. That's all we know. All I know is that this is probably good news if he's out for our friend Charlie Coyle, who we apologized to last week for not believing in his hot streak. But obviously it'll be a lot more believable if he now gets bumped up to play with like a Pasternak. It looks like in that last game, Pasternak, DeBrusk, and Morgan Geekie was the line. But these mid-game injuries, maybe they don't want to shake things up too much. Coyle was playing with Marchand and Heinen for a bit of that game. There's like a lot of different combinations, as would happen. And Boston won the game, by the way. But yeah, obviously that injury mid-game. So take a look. I think you got to be watching game day tweets. And like, yeah, especially if Coyle's also on the top power play. I am seeing actually that there was a top power play of Marchand, Coyle, Pasternak, Zacha, and Shattenkirk. Oh yeah, but McAvoy's going to be back apparently. He's out, but he's already like skating with the team. So forget about that. Don't go grab Shattenkirk, but you might be wanting to rush to grab Charlie Coyle if this Zacha injury is significant.
You remember a few weeks back when I had to apologize to Charlie Coyle?
Yeah. That was funny. But now
I feel like someone should apologize to me.
Because why?
Because he didn't do anything for a while.
Oh,
and now Coyle has an opportunity, and this is like easily the most offense we've seen from Coyle in a very long time. So if he can regain some of that shooting percentage magic, that would be great. But he's going to need to shoot to do that, which he hasn't done lately. Just 5 shots in his last 4 games. But a deployment bump could help with that, Elon. And I agree that you could pop him on your watch list in like a cupful deep league.
Yeah, and again, like I'm not saying this is even a guarantee. Yeah, it's just me speculating. Andy is saying in the chat that Poitras and Geeky were getting shots on the top line. So yeah, just we'll find out. Boston's great. Their beat writers are great. They always tell us the lines. So we won't, we'll find out really soon. Oh, okay. I thought you were putting up your hand. Okay.
No, I did. You skipped Anders Lee. I didn't
No,
know
I
if that
mentioned
was...
I mentioned Anders Lee. You just didn't comment on him.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to say something about him now?
You know what? I will touch on him later.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm gonna go into break then. All right, with that, Brian, I think we're through all the injuries and outjuries. Now we could finally just switch over to the main event. My trade. We'll get to that. I'm sure everyone's so excited to hear about it. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting content. We'll find out. We'll be back in just a sec.
It was despair-based reasoning. That's what Lewis said during the Short Shifts episode. And I feel like that was my Drake Batherson. Like, yeah.
Lewis also had a good line about saying that Sam Reinhart was like a broken ATM of points or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was funny. Also good. If you're not, this is now the show. If you're not listening to Short Shifts, you should.
I mean, how
agree. Are you not?
I mean, we wouldn't put it on our feed if we thought it sucked. We would have to have that awkward conversation of being like, guys, I think we're going to have to cancel the show. I mean, that'd be, we've never had to even, Brian and I have never even considered it.
But we didn't have to have, but we didn't want to have that conversation. And we just like quietly let them keep recording, but never.
They'll notice.
Like, oh no, we'd give them like a private, hey guys, we moved our feed.
Oh God.
Give them a private, like how far would you be willing to go?
I don't think that we would be able to fool these smart people. Like, I don't think it's possible.
And I'm glad we don't have to.
Yeah.
That's definitely not what's already happening. And this is not a part of that bit at all.
As like Shams is in the chat right now. Okay.
Exactly.
Also Shams would probably start like retweeting incorrect news, like, retweeting news from like fake accounts or something to get revenge.
That's real easy. You've got to be real good to
like
Shams.
A fake Elliot Friedman account. All these like trades the Leafs have made that all the Leafs fans want. All right, let's get back to it.
Could you imagine? You should have no.
We should have a separate game day tweets, game day treats or something. And it has like all right, and we'll get Shmams to take care of it. I actually met a Shams, Brian. I was at early on in. It's like this, like, you take your kid and like there's people like singing songs to your kids and stuff. And there's like a circle time. And there was this kid, like, I'm just sitting in the circle, Noah's on my lap, everything's chill. And then like the guy's singing songs and this kid is like up there, like in the guy's face, like interrupting the songs, like telling him that he should sing other songs, like in the middle of a song. And then the guy was like, okay, Shams, I hear you. Yeah, we'll get to it. And like this Shams kid was like really like a little obnoxious, but nothing like the Shams we know. But he was like a very like exuberant, cute kid. So I wonder. I was thinking about like I wonder if that's what Shams was like as a kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, I assume every Elon I meet is exactly who you were like as a kid. So,
how many Elons have you met?
Actually, I was just thinking none, 0. Okay. I don't think so. I've met Elon with an I.
Yeah, I'm a sheltered person. I don't know. This was the only.
Do you have a namesake? Do you share your name with anyone that you know?
I mean, I know some like Israelis that like I don't even know, but like Dina knows them.
But do they spell their name with an E?
I don't know, actually. Okay, I need to ask.
Because I think the Israeli spelling is with an I.
Right. Yeah. Well, this was the first Shams I actually ever met in person. I've never even met our Shams. I'd like to.
I had a high school friend named Shams.
Oh, how was he? What was he like?
He was a nice guy.
Okay.
Yeah. He didn't jump in the teacher's face and interrupt them and tell them to do other things instead of what we were doing.
Okay, that's handy. All right, let's get back to it. All right.
Okay.
Ryan, we're 10 minutes behind. I'm sorry. We'll end the show at 9:15. Part 1, I mean.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Maybe 9:10.
Okay, let's see how it goes. We'll go through all the we'll do the trade. You know, we have 6 teams to talk about there, and then that'll be the part. Okay. And we're back. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Keeping Karlsson here. Hope you enjoyed those tremendous advertisements. All right, let's get into it, Brian. I've been complaining all season long about Alex Ovechkin and Erik Karlsson and how terrible they've been, and to a lesser extent, but still a kind of significant extent, Troy Terry, who's also been terrible. On like Monday of last week, I was like, I've had it, specifically with Ovechkin, because I still feel like he has like huge name value. He's still taking shots, but just like every game, it would be like, you know, I see Washington score, and I'm like, oh, Ovechkin. No, never. Even today, it's 3-1 right now for the Capitals. How many goals does Ovechkin have? None. He has an assist on a Dylan Strome goal. So that's like now lately been like the best you can expect, is maybe a stray assist. A secondary assist for the best goal scorer of all time has been the best we've been able to see so far. One shot in this game for Washington. So anyways, I sent out like 8 trade offers. Just like was thinking people I could get, and I was trying to reach high, and I reached out for like Reinhardt, and I did one for Marchand, and just like a lot of players. I thought like maybe people that obviously I drafted Ovechkin ahead of. When was one of my offers was for Zach Hyman, and I got a counter offer, which was in the end, it was from Dave, by the way, Dave Betton, who has been on our feed before, of course, when he did Stream Scheme. So Ovi, Erik Karlsson, and Troy Terry, all my misfits. And then Dave was offering me Zach Hyman, Ehlers, and Dursey. Okay. And then I sent that out to like our little brain trust there. I asked you what you think. I asked the short trust people what they think. I asked my Team Jordan chat. Literally every single person told me, don't do this trade. You're getting ripped off. It's a bad trade. And I just couldn't get out of my head though. Cause I'm just like, because also, by the way, with Erik Karlsson, it's like, everyone, you're reading all these tweets about, man, this Pittsburgh power play hasn't scored for like a month, and they're going to try every single config. So he's like struggling, like they can't score. Ovechkin can't score. Troy Terry's taking shots now. Hopefully, and I was like, what am I going to spend my whole life waiting for these people? Watch my season pass through my fingers. Meanwhile, Zach Hyman getting points every single game. So I couldn't help it, Brian. Ehlers on the top line. I pulled the trigger against what everyone said. I was just like, I just have a hunch. And now we can dive into it. And you could tell me how you actually wrote to me a text message saying you're nuts. That was the whole message when I told you that I accepted the trade. So we'll find out. But I think I've pulled off a very underrated strategy in fantasy, the buy high, sell low strategy. I know everyone's always trying to do the opposite. It seems to make the most sense. You want to get the guys that are underperforming, send someone who's overperforming, and then when they switch, but I did the opposite. Okay, I traded away my underperforming guys to get guys who are doing well. I'm hoping that my guys who will likely bounce back won't bounce back like enough to make up for how much farther down I guess Zach Hyman will go. But let's get into it. Okay, so let's start in Washington, because I think a lot of people have Ovechkin, probably are wishing they could trade him, but maybe don't have the guts, maybe for good reason. So Brian's going to give us the answer here. Going into today, only 1 assist in 4 games for Ovi. He did have 4 shots versus the Rangers yesterday. We're in the 3rd period today. Like I said, Ovi has an assist and a shot versus Chicago. So we're up to now 2 points in 5 games. I think that I'm worried, right? Because also the vibes on Twitter very like when you search for Ovechkin, it's like he looks so old. Like Ovechkin doesn't look the same. I saw a clip of him like tripping in practice, which I was like, oh my God, this guy. So what do you think at this point? Like, what are you expecting from Ovechkin rest of the season?
Well, I want his agent to share a hype video of Ovechkin not tripping in practice now, just to set the record straight. And by the way, the text that said you're nuts was not in a vacuum because you made the trade. It was because you received the trade offer. You asked several people you trusted. Everyone gave you the same answer. And like you were clearly like, I knew how this was going to end, like pretty early on. And like over the course of like, I don't know if it was 24 hours or whatever, but I knew you were looking for your spot, and then you must have seen the trip video, and that was it. Like that was like you rushed to see if the offer was still on the table.
Well, no, actually, I was about to click accept the night I got the offer, and then Troy Terry got like an assist, and I was like, let me sleep on it. Then I woke up the next morning, and then I was like, just so annoyed, just looking at like all the stats and just seeing how awesome Hyman is and how crap my guys are. But yeah, what do you think about Ovi?
So Ovi is struggling this season. And like, yeah, the eye test doesn't seem awesome, but the numbers test also says that he should be doing better than the 56-point pace he's on, or 52-point pace. Ovechkin's shooting just 2% at 5-on-5. and 3% on the power play. And that's basically it's a third of what we should usually expect Ovechkin to convert at. Now the question is, does Ovechkin seem as dangerous as he has before? And it's kind of a harder question to answer because last season Ovechkin did something really strange for a 37-year-old and like went off. Like he went nuts last season to get his 42 goals. And the season before he had 50. So it like wasn't so out of line, but it was like this high watermark that Ovechkin set in a few different ways, and sort of his individual expected goals, his shot rates. Things looked really good for him instead of sort of like a nice gradual pattern of decline. So it's like this weird spike up and then continuation of the decline we'd expect to see from aging this year, which wouldn't look so out of place if it weren't for last year's big spike up. So all this to say, Ovechkin is not the most dominant version of himself, but he's also not so different right now under the hood from the absolutely just fine version of himself. Like his 5-on-5 shot rates, yeah, are lower than ever, not by a ton, as expected for an older guy. Not only is he having trouble scoring, his whole line is they are shooting less than 6% at 5-on-5 with Ovechkin on the ice. And for all the talk of how bad Washington has been, I actually don't see in there like his lines expected goal numbers together. They don't seem like they're actually that bad. They haven't been terribly affected compared to previous years with Ovechkin. And it's a pretty similar story on the power play. Like I said, he's shooting only 3%, but the numbers look fine everywhere else, even better than at 5-on-5. But the Capitals are they're scoring on just 5 out of every 100 shots they take, 5% on ice shooting, which is worse, yes, than they're shooting at 5-on-5. Meanwhile, the power play expected goals numbers for the Caps are higher than ever, and by a lot. So like none of this really squares and would be screaming buy low, except for the fact that, well, we talked about the eye test. Ovechkin's 38 years old. I don't think he's turned into a pumpkin, but I guess I'm still afraid he could. Like there's not a rational fear that Ovechkin won't bounce back from my rational brain, but I don't think I can lean on my rational brain so hard here. And so, when we get to Hyman in a little bit, Elon, I will talk about why I think Ovechkin for Hyman was a gutsy move and an interesting one, and one that I think could and will actually pan out just fine for you. Like I think I like that flip. And for anyone who has Ovechkin, well, when we get to Hyman, you can decide for yourself.
Yeah, like I could spoil it. I know you're going to say that Hyman's overperforming, but the question is how far down is he going to fall? But yeah, we'll get to that. Since we're on Washington, just really quickly, Lindgren had a shutout yesterday versus the Rangers. Charlie Lindgren has been really good, but Darcy Kemper is having a good game today against Washington. Or sorry, against Chicago, for what that's worth. I guess not as scary of an opponent. Seems like this is just another one of these goalie situations that are really tricky to predict. Do you have it? I feel like it's kind of just like a Detroit situation where I don't know if necessarily I want to tell people to rush to grab Lindgren, but I think you might be at a point where you can drop Kemper, right? Kind of like Husso. Like, I think that it's like Lindgren seems fine. Like, I don't see why Washington doesn't give Lindgren a good run of games. What do you think?
Yeah, me neither. I have Darcy Kemper, and I've just been waiting for the moment. Like he's only still on my roster because he's playing a back-to-back today. But it's complicating things that Kemper's actually. I mean, it's Chicago, but he's still stopped 22 of 23. I mean, 23 of 24 now. I don't want to jinx anything, and has like a couple decent. Like he hasn't been awful, but he hasn't been as good as Lindgren. Lindgren has been fantastic. And I'm not sure why Lindgren wouldn't be the starter going forward, aside from, I guess, contract status and dollars invested. Like Lindgren has earned the job. 6 of 9 quality starts, 931 save percentage versus Kemper, who had going into today an 887 save percentage and just 5 of 13 quality starts, which is actually pretty similar to Ville Husso, who we said to drop. So Kemper is getting pretty close to that point, except I feel like he hasn't been quite as awful. Like he hasn't been as terrible, as brutal recently as Husso has been. Lindgren, by the way, as an NHLer, still has a chance to be a number one. I think based on there's not a whole lot of track record for Lindgren. Over 8 seasons, he has 63 starts, but 60% of those have been quality and has a career 910 save percentage. He's undrafted, turns 30 next week. And this might be an interesting opportunity for Lindgren to get some starts. I don't see why he wouldn't start at least every 2 of 3, just comparing his play directly to Kemper's.
Okay, now let's go to the Oilers here. I want to get the Hyman side of this deal. And of course, it wasn't just Ovechkin for Hyman, right? I did have to also give up Eric Karlsson, who we'll also get to. But so Connor McDavid is the reason why I'm interested in Hyman, of course. I got to start any conversation in Edmonton with McDavid, who is on just an insane run. Another multi-point game today versus New Jersey, 1 goal, 1 assist, bringing him to 23 points in his last 9 games. McDavid is just going insane bananas lately. And Zach Hyman is, of course, with him at both even strength and on the power play. And Hyman is just as hot, 12 points in his last 7. No points today, but he had 5 shots, which I like to see. He also had 7 shots in 2 straight games earlier this week. And Andrea is saying in the chat here that Hyman was very close to an assist today, and then it like bounced off someone, so whatever. So all that to say, Hyman is now up to 27 points in 24 games, which seems high, right? A 92-point pace, though last year Hyman paced for 86. And if he's with McDavid and the way McDavid's going, McDavid seems like he's going to get 2 points every game. So can't Hyman get in on like 2/3 of them? You would think so, just based on typical IPPs. I don't know. You're the expert, Brian. I'm super high on him. Maybe not like 92 points high, but like I feel like point per game should be pretty easy unless there's a line shakeup. But tell me why I'm wrong. And I love the shots. Look at all those shots. He's shooting like Ovechkin. Remember how Ovechkin, when I drafted him, I was like, the good thing with Ovechkin is he's going to shoot a lot and you get a floor. It's like not so much, not as much as Hyman.
No. And get this, Elon. I, like you said, 92-point pace, maybe not that high. I say, why not that high for Zach Hyman? He looks amazing. Yes, he's shooting 17% at 5-on-5, which is like out of line with Hyman's career numbers. But he also has an insane expected goals rate on his own individually. And that's because of all those shots he's taken. And they are high quality shots too. Do you know, Elon, that just by raw counting, Zach Hyman leads the whole NHL in total expected goals, which is like, I'm going to tell you something that is going to, yeah, do you have a question?
No, that was me doing the kiss.
I see. Beautiful. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you something that's going to sort of undermine that for a moment, but then you'll be like, okay, yeah, the stat is still valid because second in the whole NHL in total expected goals is Anders Lee.
Oh, boy.
Isn't that something?
Go at Anders Lee.
I mean, yeah, you should. New first line left winger. And remember, we said I said I think it was last week that I wasn't ready to buy in just because I was just seeing too many 1s and 2s in the shots column for Anders Lee, even while he was heating up. And then since then, he's had a 6-shot and a 4-shot game on line 1. So I'm in. I'll jump on Anders Lee while I wait to see what happens next. That's the Anders Lee update. But back to Zach Hyman. And Anders Lee. So they're the 2 leaders in expected goals individually, followed by, now tell me if you feel like this is legit. Jake Gensel, Philip Forsberg, Evander Kane, Austin Matthews, Nikita Kucherov, Sidney Crosby, Brady Tkachuk, Jeff Skinner, and Brock Nelson. Like and it's an interesting little stat, right? It measures, it takes shot threat and volume, quantity and quality, smushes it together and says, this is how many goals we should expect based on all that data. But anyway, that Hyman leads the NHL in this number tells me that 17% may actually be sustainable. And this is 5-on-5, by the way. His on ice expected goals, like playing with McDavid, is going to be great, right? It's also pretty crazy high. Hyman's pacing for, about 25 power play points too, which is a great spot for him to be in. He had an 86-point pace last year, 92-point pace right now. And like I said, Elon, why not? Why can't Zach Hyman keep it up? And actually, Taylor in the chat here, one of our patrons, by the way, patrons get access to the live shows as we record them, mentioned, now that McDavid is doing better, won't Hyman as well? And who's going to unlock a better Ovi? Which is like a really good question. Like Ovechkin doesn't have, he has Dylan Strome, of course, but there's not a whole lot of help in Washington to get Ovi going. But Hyman has McDavid, and Hyman himself is doing amazing. So, yes, I am. This is why I am for your Ovechkin for Hyman trade. The price you paid to upgrade from Ovechkin to Hyman was Eric Karlsson, who we'll get to in a little bit, to see if this whole thing really does bear out and pass muster.
Yeah, we'll find out. But okay, I'll mention while we're on Edmonton, Evan Bouchard. There's not much to say about it. He's just incredible. He's got 16 points in his last 11 games. It was like so obvious, right? As soon as McDavid was going to get going, so it was going to be Bouchard, and now he's on a 92-point pace on the season after another goal today. Probably was the third or maybe four, maybe second. I don't know. Like, I think we've got a top 4D at this point, like in no particular order. Makar, Hughes, Bouchard, and Roman Josi are like the top 4 D in fantasy. And like Bouchard just climbing up that list.
Yeah.
He's very good. And then also we've got an accountability drop here. A month ago we talked about the Oilers goalies. Stuart Skinner will win the battle over Jack Campbell, and Skinner will be rosterable. That was our prediction. We were very much correct because Campbell got sent to the AHL, and Skinner has been decent enough. Like, now that Edmonton is scoring a lot of goals and winning some games, Stuart Skinner definitely worth rostering in all leagues today. By the way, Calvin Pickard had a good game. But this is Skinner's net, and we were definitely right to say that Skinner will be worth it if you wait.
Skinner has still been below his expected Fenwick save percentage this month, according to Evolving Hockey. But is like it's still not as bad as he was before that, and is doing enough, right? Which is all the Oilers need their goalie to do. Is enough because of Hyman and McDavid, because of the team, and Evan Bouchard, as you mentioned. Elan Bouchard is pacing for more than 40 power play points and 20 power play goals. Right now, he's got 4 power play goals already. I'm not sure I see all of that holding, but even if Bouchard paces for 30 power play points, he's still a point per game player this season. And I am with you in putting him in that no doubt top 4, who, I thought the next guy to join that group was going to be Rasmus Dahlin. Wrong.
Yeah.
64-point pace so far.
Yeah.
Buffalo's had their power play struggles. Like, I still think he's going to be better than that the rest of the season. But just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah. And Heiskanen hasn't been as great. Fox was injured for a bit. Fox is good, but doesn't get. Yeah. It's like you definitely want Bouchard over these guys. Let's move on now. Yeah, let's go to the Pittsburgh side of this trade. And Erik Karlsson. Okay, he's pointless in 3 games, only 2 points in his last 10. So again, I'm selling low. The question is, did Dave do a great job, buying low on Erik Karlsson, or did I do a great job, dumping him while he still has the great name value? That's what we got to figure out. Of course, the big story here with Karlsson is that Pittsburgh hasn't scored a power play goal now in a month. Like, they can't score a power play goal. What's the point of having a defenseman on the top power play if they don't score a power play goal? It's nothing. He's doing okay at even strength, I'm sure you'll say, and blah, blah, blah. And I know the underlying numbers, every tweet I see, because, now there's a lot of people being like, oh, I guess the Penguins really blew it getting Karlsson, Duba, really, made a big mistake. And it's then, all the smart people on Twitter that I follow are like, actually, if you look at the underlying stats, Karlsson has been great. It's not his fault. It's other people's fault that Pittsburgh isn't scoring. So great. I like to hear that because Karlsson's one of my best, favorite players. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I don't care whose fault it is. All I know is Karlsson is doing nothing. And now the question is, will he be able to turn it around? It's not going to help also that Brian Rust is hurt. I don't think we know yet the extent on that. I guess on the flip side, Rickard Rakell is eligible to return next week, and he's been skating, but he also has been bad all year. Also, Brian, get this. Pittsburgh just assigned, or I guess brought Jesse Puljujärvi for a tryout. So we'll see if he comes in and takes a spot on the top line.
I wanted to know when that news was announced. I wanted to know what Puljujärvi's been doing while waiting.
I think he had a surgery. He's been recovering. Okay. He's been hurt. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he's not just sitting by the phone. But you want to talk about Karlsson.
Of course, I was giving the context of the team around him. And we don't know exactly who's going to be with him on that top power play. They're trying a million combinations. They got Letang back up there. But yeah, what do you think? Did I sell low in a dumb way, or did I sell low in a smart way?
Well, time will tell. And I truly don't know. I feel a little bit more confident in the Karlsson bounce back than the Ovechkin bounce back. Ovechkin's going to bounce back. I just don't know it's going to get up to above a point per game pace. Karlsson won't necessarily bounce back to last year's pace either, but that's what we expected. But I think he could at least get to a 70-point pace. Right now, Karlsson's pacing for 60 points. And the reason why I think Karlsson can grow from here, is mostly because of that power play. And the reason I don't think he'll be point per game like he was last year was because We expected 5-on-5 scoring regression from Karlsson, and that's happened. What we didn't expect was power play production resembling a second unit guy, just 4 points in 26 games. In that 60-point pace that Karlsson has, just 15 power play points. Add 10, and I think that's conservative. He's at a 70-point pace already. So can we add those 10? Like, can we just regress Karlsson on the power play? I think so. Like, the Pittsburgh power play looks a lot more dangerous than they have actually shown themselves to be. They are the, what do I have here? The 3rd ranked power play. Oh, no, sorry. They're like the 7th or 8th ranked power play in terms of expected goals as a team. But
you're looking all season, right? Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like this last month has been rough. Like, and even this pace, you're talking about Karlsson's like a 60-point pace. It's like, that would be beautiful. Like, I haven't seen him get a point.
Yeah, because he had an amazing stretch, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It feels like forever ago.
All I can do is look at the whole picture. I mean, like, yes, I could look. I don't think it would be instructive in this case to just pick out bits and pieces, because I think, some like the red and green boys, right? A lot of the times things just weigh each other out. But the Pittsburgh power play ranks 31st in the league in shooting percentage. Brutal. Their power play looks dangerous, though. Like, compare their expected goals to their actual goals, and the Pens are down 9 goals, and you assume Karlsson gets 5 or 6 points on those 9 goals based on his, roughly 2/3 participation on the power play. And he's pacing for near 30 power play points, which is double what he's pacing for currently on the power play. And that brings him to a 75-point pace. The only thing I see not to like here is the bottom line, which is that Karlsson like hasn't done it yet. And for as long as he doesn't do it, and as long as the Pens don't do it, we just worry that they're not actually going to. And, it's also on a new team. And so maybe this is part of the new team effect. They just haven't figured out to make it all work. But honestly, I like what Dave did, getting Karlsson and Ovechkin for Hyman. I think it's not a bad move. I think it's a reasonable trade for both. I think the upside of the Ovechkin Karlsson side is probably higher, but the downside is also like it also carries higher risk, right? So it's a higher risk, high reward play. And you were just tired of both these guys and wanted to move on. And I get that.
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised, from Dave's situation, he's actually was leading the fast track in all of Cacouple, the most points in the whole Cacouple when he made this deal, which I feel like you're doing so well. And now you want to take like my problem players, like it could just like make him even better. Sure, if you're like what you're saying, Brian, with if the upside hits, it's scary. Like he's guts. I'm gonna give Dave that.
Because, unnecessary risk exposure for sure.
Yeah, it's like your team is great, and like now you're taking on Ovi and Karlsson. But yeah, we'll see how it works out. Brian, let's go to the Winnipeg side of this trade now, because actually we have breaking news, which I hate to say might be good for me, but I don't want to say because this sucks. This is bad news. Looks like Kyle Connor took a knee-to-knee from Ryan Strome in the game right now versus Anaheim, and he like was taken off the ice, like not putting weight on it. I know Shams is going to show the his meme of like, injuries aren't real until they announce that
the player's out for the game. The sign.
But like, I don't know, from the chat, I think Andy's like watching the game, and it looks like this does not look good for Kyle Connor. That would be bad for him. Like that, I mean, this is all news. Like I haven't even seen anything on Twitter yet, or I haven't seen anything. I'm just like literally reading the chat here. But yeah, if that happens, I wonder if that does mean that Nikolai Ehlers, he never gets on the top power play. But obviously if Connor's gone, it's like Ehlers and Connor play the same position. So maybe that would be the opening for Ehlers to get there. But anyways, before this injury, this stinks. Because also Ehlers, Connor and Scheifele have been clicking on the top line. That's a line they haven't ran for most of the year, but lately it's been looking good. Like Ehlers himself, 4 points in his last 3 games. Can't help to lose. I don't know. My brain is spinning now because of this injury news here. But yeah, what's your take on Ehlers? Because in general, like a lot of people have been like struggling with Ehlers, and now like on the top line, he's doing well. So I was wondering if like this is a sign of a turnaround for him and he's going to finally get his season going, or is it kind of a mirage? He's been on power play 2 the whole time. But of course, now with his injury, maybe it all goes out the window, because maybe now he's going to go to power play 1, but also maybe he'll have a worse first line because he's lost Kyle Connor.
Thank goodness we have 2 midweek short shifts episodes to help us sort that out. So I think for now, I'm just going to assume nothing's happened, but we know that something might have happened, right? So filter all this through that. Ehlers before this injury, he still feels meh to me without consistent power play time and reliable shots. His own expected goals numbers are down a fair bit. Like, I wouldn't rule out Ehlers still playing up to expectation minus the power play deployment, which would probably get him like a 60, 65 point pace. It just always feels like with Ehlers, there's something we don't know. I'm still kind of into him, and this could be the start of him figuring it out. And it could be a big help if he has extra deployment with which to figure it out. So stay tuned to that. I guess the bottom line on my Ehlers piece is I'm not like I've kind of given up on him, but it doesn't mean that I don't think he has a chance to be great still. It's just like it's weird to me that after all these years, he's still like his deployment actually seems to be getting worse when we were just like, oh yeah, there's not room for him to have a chance. And now there is. And there's been a couple like coaches who have passed through, and he just still has never been given that opportunity to be the guy.
Yeah, like on the power play, like I said, he had been recently on the top line with Connor and Ehlers, like finally loading up the top line with their three best, and it has been going well. But now maybe things will change. So who knows? By the way, also we've had a lot of people asking if Gabe Vilardi is a snoozer. He's like on that top power play, but he's done nothing. 1 point in his last 5 games. Make that 6 now. Well, we're halfway through, so we'll see. No points yet at 0-0 between the Jets and the Ducks. Let's say it's say whatever, Vilardi gets 1 assist or less in this game. Like, nothing big happens to change our mind. Do we call him a snoozer at this point, or do you still kind of hold Vilardi in a league like the Cupful as long as he's on the top power play?
I think I call it like it depends if the schedule is going to work really good for you. You could, but Vilardi really hasn't shown much to be worth holding. Vilardi had 7 shots in his first game of the season. Since then, Vilardi has played 6 more games and has taken just 8 shots. Has that top power play deployment, but that's about it. So really, I feel like Vilardi's best comp right now is like a Stefan Nason, who had like, irrelevant 5-on-5 production or deployment, and then had the opportunity to produce on the power play, but was still sort of like a good single day stream, and that's it. So that's where I'll put Vilardi. The difference between Vilardi and Nason, though, is that Vilardi has some upside, right? As a 24-year-old with pedigree, so there is that. But I'm not like holding him because I think him realizing that upside is super imminent.
Yeah. By the way, one thing I wanted to mention quickly on Pittsburgh, I think I said it in passing, but again, like Rust is hurt. Raquel might be back next week. So I think it might be a move, by the way. If you have Raquel just sitting in your IR, just grab him and stash him. Like, it doesn't cost you anything. Sorry, if he's available like in free agency and you can grab him and put him in your IR and then like leave him there for a couple games, things shake out. Just to say, like, I could see Pittsburgh putting Raquel on that power play to try to turn things around. He was there last year and it went really well. Obviously, it didn't go well to start this year, but now, especially if Rust is out and things are struggling, like, why not give him another shot? So just wanted to mention that with Raquel. But like, this is all just based on like last year. Nothing this year indicates that Raquel is good. Brian, I still have a couple more teams to get through when we're dealing with this trade. And then I've got a bunch of hot and cold streaks. It's all just good stuff at the end of the day, getting Brian's takes on a bunch of interesting players. So we're going to get to all that in part 2 of this episode. Hopefully you've been enjoying what we've been giving you so far. If you want to hear the rest of the show, you should already have the episode downloaded. So just check your subscription on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Did you hear about Google Podcasts is going away? I hear it's pretty good. I use Pocket Casts, but if I didn't use Pocket Casts, I would use Google Podcasts. I thought it was good, but Google's weird. They had a chat that kept going away. I guess they're quick to. They had like Google Chat, like, I don't know. They keep changing it. I feel like Google just can't decide sometimes on some of these things.
Remember Google Wave?
Like vaguely, very vaguely.
The thing that Google, well, now we're talking. The thing that Google never, I wish they never got rid of, was Google Reader.
Oh, I liked that. Yeah. But
that was the best.
Yeah. But nowadays I don't really read blogs. But maybe that's why.
Google Reader was like the original Twitter. How about that?
But it was like blogs. Like, you had to have a
you
had to
read stuff.
Yeah, you had to read more than a few characters.
Yeah.
Shams is saying Iafallo's taking Connor's spot on the top line right now. So that would be Iafallo with Scheifele and Ehlers. So deep enoughly. I mean, Iafallo was like there before and wasn't doing that well.
Yeah, not that exciting.
All right, so that's the end of part 1. We'll see you soon. Bye. Okay, let's go. We don't have that much. Like, theoretically, this should be doable and not that long.
Yeah, I think we might still be able to make it.
But you know us. But we'll see. Okay. Woo! We are back, everybody, and I'm still trying out new intros to part 2 here until I find something that sticks. Hello, welcome to the second half of this mega episode of Keeping Karlsson. I'm Milan Dubrovsky. I'm here with Brian Com. We're looking at what's been going on in the NHL over the past couple of weeks. Well, mainly the last week. We did a show last week, okay? But yeah, I'm really excited, Brian, to keep talking to you. I think that we've been having a great conversation about that trade I made, which I just want to finish off here. So again, I moved Ovi, Erik Karlsson, and Troy Terry for Hyman, Ehlers, and Durzi. So we still got to cover the Terry and Durzi part. And Troy Terry, another person that's been so frustrating, not only for me, because I'm seeing him dropped pretty widely in a couple, not pretty widely, but I've been seeing like a few people mentioning that they've seen Terry dropped in their divs and wondering, should they bid fab on him? Is he going to turn it around? And the thing with Troy Terry is he kind of like has indications that he should turn it around. Like he's taking a lot of shots, also like more shots than Ovechkin lately, like 4s and 5s over his past few games, but like super ice cold. 1 point in his last 6 games for Troy Terry. Today, they're like halfway through, like I said, in this game versus the Jets. Right now, no shots. Like he's been very frustrating. Okay. But just like Ovechkin and Karlsson, maybe there's reasons to think it'll turn around. You don't know how much I was beating myself up like so far in this season. Like I just have to say to everyone, like, even if I lose this trade, just the weight that's been lifted, because every day, seeing these guys go out, get no points, and I have to think back to my draft, like, oh my gosh, I could have taken this person, I could have taken this person. Just like all those bad memories always coming. Now it's just like, free. I don't have to think about it. And if Troy Terry does well, good for Dave. I think I have it in me to be happy either way. But Brian, is Troy Terry going to make Dave happy, or is he going to be dropping him just like some other managers have in a short order?
It depends on what Dave's expectations are for Troy Terry. I'm holding him in a league where like I probably should have dropped him, but the Ducks schedule is enough for me to be like, I think it could be worth holding on if Terry could just do something. And with Troy Terry, I see bad variance. So like I think he could do better than he's doing, but it could also be like it's also bad other stuff. It's not just like Troy Terry. It's sorry. Sorry. What was I saying?
It's not just Troy Terry. It's not just bad variance.
Right. It's
It's
not
other
just bad
stuff.
variance. It's other stuff. Right. Okay. So Troy Terry is to blame, and I think he needs to figure it out. And maybe there's been a system adjustment with a new coach and what he's being asked to do, and like a new tone being. We've gone through this theory, and like I'm not 100% sure, but who was it? It was Adam K, Tier 1 competitor, the AKA Felix Owls, and he mentioned like he called like we were talking about Connor Ingram on our Discord server, and he's like, oh, you won the Connor Ingram hot potato contest because like you win when you're holding the potato in the music, because like people were just cycling through these guys, right? And then you just hope that when you add them, you give them a fresh shot and they work out. And I feel like Troy Terry could be like a hot potato kind of ad, where if you do get him at the right time, it'll be helpful. And if you get him at the wrong time, it'll be hurtful. So good luck. I still see the possibility for good times ahead for Troy Terry. But something just doesn't totally smell right. And so even when things do start going well for Troy Terry, I'm not expecting like the 75 points that I was hoping he'd get when I drafted him too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like he's on the top line, he's on the top power play, he's taking shots. Normally that means it's going to turn around, but also like it's been a while. Like this has been going on for a while. By the way, I hope you grabbed Leo Carlsson. Last week we were talking about him. He's been really hot lately. I think he's just getting better. Seems like this veil has been lifted. Now he's up to like maybe 3 games per week. We'll find out. Also, Zegras and Drysdale have been skating, so it'll be interesting to follow along what's going on in Anaheim. But yeah, I think Leo Carlsson, especially with a good schedule coming up, he'd be my like guy I would definitely grab. Like if Troy Terry and Carlsson are out there, for me it's Carlsson. I don't know if you feel differently, Brian.
Well, Karlsson's still going to sit like every 4th or 5th game. He's going to play 3 times a week now, right? That's the latest update on Leo Carlsson.
But when he plays, he scores goals. He like does his stuff. It's so good.
Yes, sometimes. Yeah, like I hear you. I think I feel like Troy Terry is someone who could be a little like Carlsson's still pretty like inconsistent and unreliable. He had a couple like really appealing games in a row, but before that it was a lot of hit or miss. And so I expect hit or miss with the occasional benching from Leo Carlsson, which is why I think I'd still rather Troy Terry.
All right, that'll be a fun one. Trev could just have a field day in a month from now. It'll be fun to go back on all these takes about these players. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Terry versus Leo Carlsson. All right, last one, Sean Dursey. So he was like, I didn't go after him, right? This was the offer I got, and I took it, like not like because of Sean Dursey, but I do like him. Like, I don't know, he was hurt. Then he returned yesterday versus Boston, did nothing, apparently had a bad game. Like he had a bad giveaway at one point, and looks like he was getting punished somewhat. Like he had low ice time. He also took like a couple penalties. He did have like 7 minutes and 2 seconds of power play time, so that's good. And that power play didn't score any goals, but I see on Frozen Tools that they took 8 shots. So, you would think normally if your power play takes 8 shots, maybe one goes in, and probably Jersey has a decent chance of getting an assist or something. So I don't know. Overall, it's been pretty bleak. Like 1 point in his last 9 games. I know, Brian, you have Jersey as well. You haven't dropped him yet, so now you and I are in this together. I think there were some other short shifts hosts that have Jersey. I think 2 others. So are we all snoozing here? Should we all be getting off the Jersey train, or are you going to be holding for a little bit longer?
I'm going to be holding, but I'm not expecting much from Sean Dursey, like maybe 50 points. He had a nice run of goals at the start of the season. That was cool, but those stopped as we thought they might. But where I see room for improvement from Dursey to get up to 50 points is at 5-on-5. He's participated in just 23% of the goals scored while he's on the ice, and I think he could do better there. I think Jersey's upside is also greater, like it's higher than 50 points, but I'm not seeing any signs that he's about to blow up. So that's why I'm sort of going just with like a conservative 50 points even for Jersey, like more likely to be a smidge below than a smidge above.
Yeah, and we'll see. Like obviously it depends how well that power play does. Speaking of Arizona, we got some. Sorry, I don't know why I said it so slowly. Speaking of Arizona, we've got some news about the goaltending. Unfortunately, Connor Ingram finally had a couple bad games, which was a bummer. He was like on such a great hot streak, was playing all these games in a row. But yeah, led in 4 goals in a loss to Philly, and then 5 goals against on that loss to Boston on Saturday. We've already gotten an update from Craig Morgan saying that we have the plan. Like it's going to be Monday. Ingram's going to play again versus Buffalo, and then Vejmelka's going to get the next 2 games at home or at Pittsburgh, and then at home versus San Jose. And then I guess in Arizona plays 4 times next week. So that means Ingram's going to get Monday, and then whatever Saturday, and Vejmelka's going to get Tuesday, Thursday. So if Vejmelka has been dropped, which like how could he not have been at this point if he hasn't played in like 2 weeks and was doing so terribly? If you believe, like Vejmelka's been good in the past. I don't know. I think it's worth considering Vejmelka for the Tuesday, Thursday, and then you could always recess. Or I think it's Tuesday, Friday, actually. Tuesday, Friday, and then Saturday is the Arizona schedule. We'll see what happens in net. Bummer that Ingram fell off.
Yeah, Ingram has been great. He earned the starter's job, but the door is open to Vejmelka again. So we'll see how this last start of the run goes for Ingram. And then, Elon, I'm with you. If I'm looking for goalie starts, Vejmelka getting 2. He hasn't been great this season, but Arizona's been all right. So I would be willing to take that chance just in case Vejmelka plays really well. And then Ingram doesn't, then it's Vejmelka's job again. Like I could see this turning again real quick.
And I guess also in Arizona, I mentioned on the matchup maximizer yesterday, Jason Zucker has been running on the top line, playing with Keller and Schmaltz, and he's been good lately. So definitely take a look at Jason Zucker. Like I said, Arizona's going Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday, Saturday. Next week, I mentioned him as one of the guys to take a look at. There's a lot of interesting Arizona guys. We've got Michelli and Bjugstad also. But yeah, Jersey's someone who we haven't talked about much this season. But yeah, 4 points in his last 3 games on the top line. I think it's worth a look. He was good last year.
Zucker?
Yeah.
He was good last year?
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Zucker had a 50-point pace, but better than he's been in a long time.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll say Zucker was good last year. Like, yes, 50, relatively good. With a 50-point pace, 27 goals, had shot rates that were pretty decent. A nice little refreshing change for the end of his time in Pittsburgh. And Arizona was supposed to be a bit of a fresh start, but his shot rates have gone down, and so is his deployment. But this is an interesting opportunity for Zucker, Elon, and I'm glad you brought him up because, good spot to be for Zucker on the top line. I like him there, especially if he's shooting. A question for you: who would you rather, Jason Zucker or Anders Lee?
Lee.
Me too.
Okay. So that's it for my trade. In the end, sounds like Brian, you just put it as like I'm taking whatever. I have a higher like ceiling. What was it? No, sorry. Let me say it again. In the end, you said basically like Dave has a higher ceiling, but also a lower floor to go either way. So that's a good trade then. So
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
think you narrowed your range of possible outcomes by dealing Ovechkin and Karlsson. And that's good. Like you gain some certainty with that. And there's something to be said for that certainty and just the mental break you get to give yourself from now on. Because I know how it's gone after watching each of these guys for 25 games every night. I
Yeah.
know. I'm glad you're moving on.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't had an Oiler in a while. I think it'll be fun to cheer for McDavid to get points because Hyman will be in on them. But okay, Brian, we've still got some hot and cold streaks to get to. Okay, so let's take our first break here of part two, and then we'll dive in. We're going to start in Dallas. We're going to start with a few players that are also highly ranked in terms of their draft, similar to Ovi and Karlsson, that people are wondering if it's time to panic about. So we'll get to that in just a second. Steve Karlsson. All right, we are back, Brian, on part two of this episode of Keeping Karlsson. And we got to go to a tweet we got from the Chell Spot asking Robertson panic mode. What would a comparable player you would try to trade for? What would be a comparable player, I should say. So yeah, Jason Robertson, unfortunately, has not been what people were hoping they would get from him when they drafted him. We're now sitting at 24 points in 26 games after a pointless game versus Vegas. Before that, he had a couple assists versus Washington, but then he had two pointless games before that. So we're sitting at a 76-point pace for Jason Robertson, well below the 109 from last year or the 88 pace from the year before. This is now back to his like initial breakout in 2021. So Brian, yeah, also the shots are way down, 2.5 shots per game for Jason Robertson versus 3.8 last year, over a shot per game down. Yeah, is it panic time? Should the Jason Robertson managers be trying to do what I did and, sell low before people realize that he's not the same? Or is it the opposite? And you got to be a Dave here and go and get Robertson while the Chell Spot and people like them are panicking.
I'm not so happy with what I'm seeing from Jason Robertson, especially as like a first round pick and like a cupful. By the way, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, kkupfl.com for more information. We noticed early on that Jason Robertson wasn't looking as great as last year, and we wanted to give him time to see if there would be like a course correction, which at the time I was expecting to happen because why not? But it hasn't happened. Last season, like you mentioned his shots, Elon, last season, Robertson averaged nearly 4 shots a game. This season, Robertson has taken 4 or more shots just twice in his last 11 game, and he's actually had less than 3 shots in 7 of his last 11. I don't love that from Jason Robertson, who's not supposed to be doing that. And his on ice line mates are similar, like down 1 expected goal per 60 minutes. That's a big drop. It's like a drop from a high end top line to just like a top 6 kind of threat for Jason Robertson's line. They're taking 7 fewer shots per 60 minutes. So obviously, like you spread that out because they don't play 60 minutes a night, but it's another way to just quantify the drop in shot volume and shot threat that Jason Robertson and his line mates are seeing when they're on the ice. And honestly, I think that's the story with Robertson, really. The power play scoring is still there for sure. It's a tall order to match last year's 41 power play points, which he's unlikely to do based on his current production, but even just like assuming that regular regression takes place. But at 5-on-5, Robertson's lesser scoring pace this season seems pretty deserved. And if he wants to do better, he needs to start shooting, in my professional opinion. So if you do have Jason Robertson and someone else hasn't realized, or you've got a big Dallas Stars fan in your league, you might want to see what price you could get. Like if I could trade Jason Robertson for Zach Hyman, I would do that easy.
Yeah, actually, I suggest. So in the tweet that he said, I said, like, we'll dig into this on Sunday. But if it turns out that he is someone you want to panic about, my suggestions were Hyman or Sam Reinhart. Try to get, again, like sort of a sell low, buy high. Maybe the person who's riding like a Hyman or a Reinhart's like, I can't believe I lucked into this person that's producing like a first round pick. No way it lasts. Let me trade him for an actual first round pick. And I don't know. I guess I haven't asked you about Reinhart, but we've talked about him before. It seems pretty for real. Another huge game for Reinhart today. He's incredible. Would you do that? You're saying you do Hyman. I guess
Yeah.
you obviously have to pick. Yeah, okay, we don't even have to look into it. Reinhardt's so amazing. He's the one. He's the what Lewis said. I love that line. The points, the broken points cash ATM or something on the last short shifts was brilliant.
Yeah, and he mentioned the line that I was trying to quote Lewis on also was despair based reasoning around Drake Batherson. That's how I
Right.
knew that Drake Batherson was going to be good.
Oh, Brian. Alex Killorn just scored a power play goal assisted by Troy Terry.
What?
I blew it. I blew this
I
trade.
mean, I feel good. That's you're not gonna watch for Ovechkin and Karlsson doing well. It's just if Troy Terry happens to pick up points, you're gonna oh no. That's it.
Mess up.
That's your bellwether here.
I think I've made a huge mistake. Okay, so
You
we had a
actually? Is this
no, I'm
just for
joking. I mean,
okay.
he's gonna get an assist. Ovi also got an assist today. We'll see.
Yes. And we no.
We knew about that, but it was only
Yeah.
like one assist, two shots. It's not what you want from Ovi.
No. Two shots? Might
Get
as
out
well
of
have
here.
not even played.
Or maybe it was three.
Don't
Okay.
even lace them up.
We had a question from Ryan. Speaking of Dallas, is Marchment a hold in a 10-team league? Marchment was on a crazy hot run, 8 points in 6 games. Finally did nothing yesterday versus Vegas. Before most of Dallas did nothing, Vegas trounced them 6-1. Like if you look at what Marchment's situation has been, he's been on this line with Sagan and Duchesne, who have both been like super like outperforming their expectations going into the year. Power play 2 for Marchment. It's like I feel like there's no way he keeps that up. A 10-team league seems pretty shallow, so I'm guessing the answer is no, unless you see something, Brian, to indicate that Marchment is going to continue to be worth holding in a 10-team league.
Yeah, I don't think so. 5 goals on 17 shots, which is what made Marchment a really great stream this past week. And I had him, and I feel really good about it. But I'm gonna pat myself on the back for riding that wave and move on. I don't think it's a sign of things to come, since not much else for Marchment seems to have changed. But I will hold him for Monday's game and then drop him. That's
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
and who knows? Maybe he'll have like a hat trick, and you'll change your mind. So he has another opportunity to impress you. But yeah,
if he picks up another goal, I will keep him for as long as he's got the hot hand for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, the next cold first round pick is Matthew Tkachuk. We've had a lot of questions of people being really upset and concerned about what Matthew Tkachuk has been giving them, especially because he was like routinely drafted way ahead, or not way ahead, but significantly ahead of Alex Barkov, who just had another huge game for Florida, 1 goal and 2 assists, 5 shots, of course, and way ahead. Tkachuk was drafted ahead of Sam Reinhart, who I see here had 4 assists today in the 5-2 win over the Blue Jackets. Meanwhile, Tkachuk scored a goal. That's good. It was an empty net goal, so not as exciting in terms of something that you'd expect to be something available to him too often. So where are we with this guy now after today's goal, the empty net goal? We're at 20 points in 27 games for Matthew Tkachuk, a sad 61-point pace. Yeah, I guess it's very similar question to Jason Robertson. Like, is this like buy low time or is it sell low time on Tkachuk? And I guess we have to ask the question of like Tkachuk versus Robertson. If you have one of them, do you offer for the other?
I do. I would prefer Tkachuk. I think it's more buy low time for Tkachuk than it is Robertson. First off, Tkachuk's line is doing better than Robertson. But there is a similar decrease in shot generation to Robertson in production versus last year. The difference against Robertson is that Tkachuk is still mostly doing his part. That decrease in shot generation and threat is mostly the line for Tkachuk, while Tkachuk himself is doing all right. For Robertson, it was both himself and his line. And I wonder, we've been talking about this all year, Elon. So at some point, you have to start wondering, like, okay, should we just imagine that this is how it is? But I'm still not ready to fully accept that for Tkachuk. He's seen a lot of Carter Verhaeghe, but a rotating cast of the third wheel with them. Lundell, Luosterainen, Sam Bennett, most recently Nick Cousins. A less consistent set of line mates than last year for Tkachuk. Also, the 6% on-ice shooting percentage isn't helping him. So that's why I'm sort of wondering if Tkachuk really does find that third piece who clicks, and then they just get off to the races. It was supposed to be Bennett, but it hasn't been so far. On the power play, also Tkachuk has room for regression that we can expect in a good way. He's been more involved in shooting and like still looks really good with the man advantage, but Tkachuk is participating on less than half the goals scored while he's on the ice with the power play. And Tkachuk himself has no goals on 38 shots. I think there are at least 5 missing goals there, and that seems pretty easy for me to assume it'll self-correct. So yes, I still want Matthew Tkachuk. I would trade Ovechkin for him. I would trade Robertson for him. I don't know if there are any other relevant. I'd trade Troy Terry for him.
Okay. Okay, good to know. But at the same time, it's going to take a lot for him to get back to what he was doing last year, right? It seems like that crazy pace for Kachuk over 100 points is going to be hard to get to because it just seems like the Reinhart and Barkov line, and I guess recently Erod as the third piece, they're just clicking so well. It's like it's rare for a team to have two lines that are that hot.
Yeah, and at 5-on-5 last year, it wasn't like rare or it wasn't like so weird for Kachuk to see some shifts with Barkov for games here and there, and that doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year too. So I think maybe that's a piece of things too that'll keep Kachuk to, like, I would still expect him to be like pacing for 90 points over the rest of the course of the season. Like I can't be 100% sure. Like I'm not sure exactly where to put him. That's 30 points above his current pace and 25 points below last year's pace. So that's where I'm comfortable saying for now.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and unfortunately with Kachuk not being so awesome, yeah, it's kind of bringing Sam Bennett down, right? Like Bennett's exposure to Kachuk isn't worth as much as we thought it would be. 6 points in Bennett's last 10 games after he finally started pointing after a slow start. So I got to ask, like, is Bennett a snoozer at this point? Like he's on the top power play. He's on this second line with Kachuk, but yeah, it's only been, like, even with that, it's only been good for, like I said, 6 points in his last 10. Are you expecting that to go up with Kachuk going up as well?
Yeah, I would hope so, but I don't know. Because, while the line looks I would say Bennett looks meh, extremely meh, which is worse than in my books.
Okay,
And
good
Bennett's
to
only
know.
taken 7 shots in his last 5 games, has 3 points in those 5 games. But there's nothing I'm seeing that's really getting me excited and thinking that Bennett is playing up to the level that we expect from him. I have him in a year-long points only league, and I had him stashed on IR for a really long time while he was healthy, just waiting for the moment to bring him out. And yeah, he had a couple good games, but for the most part, I was proven right. And now I'm like, now he's out of IR. And I'm trying to, like, I've got Nick Ehlers as a possible replacement and Sean Couturier. I think it's going to be one of those guys replacing Bennett on my roster, which I wasn't thinking of 2 weeks ago while I was waiting for Bennett to heat up.
Yeah, no, I think I'd take Couturier at this point as well. But let's stick with the cold streaks. I will get to Philly in a little bit, but let's go to Carolina, where Shams wanted us to talk about them because literally everyone's cold on Carolina. Like you've got Aho and you've got Svechnikov, who was ill last game. They're good, right? But pretty much everyone else, I want to know if they're worth holding as far as the forwards, well, and the goalies actually. But starting with the forwards, so you got like Seth Jarvis, pointless in 4 games, Tara Vinen, pointless in 4 games. Kakaniemi, pointless in 6 games. Who's another forward on Carolina who generally was rostered in a lot of leagues? Michael Bunting. Some people were talking about, like, he's been
Did you
okay.
mention Nachas?
Oh, Nachas. He's good generally. What's he been doing lately? Let me bring him up. Nachas 19 points in 27 games overall. 1 assist in his last 3, but he was on a streak before that. So maybe it's just like a cold stretch for him. But yeah, overall, like Carolina, not a great place. Also, both goalies have been terrible. It's like Kochikov has not been stealing the net at all, but Ranta has not been seeding the net. Like it's just kind of like they're both just doing badly when they play. Carolina still doesn't let in a lot of shots. So like these guys are just, living up to what we always say with Carolina goalies, but also just like not playing well to go along with not many shots against. So yeah, I think that's an easy one. I think there's no reason to be holding a Carolina goalie unless it's a super deep league. And I
And you're
feel
you're
like
looking for wins. Like if it's a wins only league and you don't care about volume, like well, you probably care about volume.
if it's
But if
wins
you have
only,
like
yeah.
lots of roster space and you just need, yeah, yeah. There's not a lot of great reasons to have a Carolina goalie,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And then so okay, so aside from, I guess you'll say, so is the order here? Obviously you want Aho, obviously you want Svechnikov. Yeah, I guess I'm assuming it's Nachas third for you for the forwards, and then who's 4, or is there a 4, or is everyone else even in a couple 14 team deep league snoozer at this point?
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's no one I really love on Carolina at the moment. Like, I guess I will just say, like, they have one of the best expected goal rates at 5-on-5 in the league, paired with one of the worst shooting percentages at 5-on-5 in the league. And I think at some point that'll even out. But even then, yeah, I want Aho for sure. Who's the other guy you said you wanted? I'm
Svechnikov.
blanking. Oh yeah, right. I want Aho. I want Svechnikov. And there isn't anybody else that I'm really confident is going to consistently give me more than like a 55-point pace. Like Brent Burns, I'm still interested in.
Yeah, well,
Even though he,
actually, let me
yeah,
bring up something about Burns.
okay.
We've got an accountability here a month ago when Burns was cold, and we said, don't worry about Burns. He should have a bunch more assists. And even without top power play, he should still be a 55-ish point guy with good shots. In the last 30 days, he's averaged exactly a 55-point pace. So look at that, Brian. You nailed it.
Yes, I knew it. Yeah. So I guess I'd still hold him, even though I know the numbers aren't like so promising. Like he's been fine on the power play. 5-on-5. Not only are the Canes not scoring a ton, like I mentioned, their shooting percentage is pretty low, but Burns has been less involved, less participating than usual. And I think that'll turn. So that's why I'm still hopeful that Brent Burns, despite currently being on a 39-point pace, can step up and do better than that the rest of the way.
All right, so let's keep this going with cold streaks here. Pierre-Luc Dubois, is he a snoozer at this point? I don't even know if we've already called him a snoozer, but just to make it official, we had an accountability a month ago. PLD had a slow start. Brian, I'm going to take a W here. Remember early on where there was one that you were definitely right and I was definitely wrong? Here, Brian, you said he'll be fine. I said I have a bit of doubt. In the last 30 days, PLD has averaged 3.45, a couple points per game for a 49-point pace. And if you go back even for a shorter lens of just the last 6 games, he is pointless. He's been very bad. He's not on the top power play. Dubois' even strength line is with Carl Grundstrom and Alex Laferriere, which does not give a big reason to expect things to turn around. So at this point, yeah, I'm going to take a win there. But do you have a reason to still believe moving forward that the next 30 days will go better for Dubois?
No, I don't. And this is out of line with what I usually say about Dubois. Like he's actually been fine at 5-on-5, but that's all there is right now for him. And even at 5-on-5, Dubois' ice time is a good deal down. He's lost 75 seconds a night at 5-on-5, but 3 minutes a night total because he's not even getting like really legit power play deployment. Like he's on that sort of like Kings 1B situation. And on there, I mean, he has a single power play point in 25 games. He should be better than that. But, we were thinking that Dubois was, say, a 65-point guy this year. Take out his time on ice. That puts him down to like 55, 60. Take out the power play success that he's enjoyed. And he's, the 40-point pace player he currently is. I think he'll get some of those points back. Like, I think he's got a good chance at producing above a 50-point pace the rest of the season. But I don't expect him to get all the way back up to 60, 65, or even definitely not sniff 70.
Okay, and on the flip side on LA, we did have a question from Krusty Krebs, Sean, asking, is Trevor Moore for real? This guy's been having such an incredible breakout season, 22 points in 25 games now. Pointless in his last 2, didn't get anything in this 4-1 loss to the Rangers. But yeah, still, we're looking at a pace of 72 points if he keeps up what he's been doing. I guess he didn't play all the games to start, so we won't actually hit 72, but like that's his pace, which beats his career high 50-point pace from a couple years ago. How much of this is for real? I'm pretty confident you're not going to say 72-point pace moving forward for Trevor Moore, but I'm curious to know what number you're going to land at.
I'm going to land at the usual number for Trevor Moore, which is like around that 50, maybe 55-point pace. He's shooting a little more this season. That's nice. But really what Moore has done lately is pure shooting percentage. He's shooting 19% at 5-on-5, 10 goals on 53 shots, 13 goals on 70 shots total. That'll cool. That's not his usual percentage. That's actually Trevor Moore is one of the least effective shooters in the NHL. Like his career number at 5-on-5 is like 6%. And actually all strengths the last 2 years, he's shot 7%. So that Trevor Moore's at 19% is obviously too high. And there's nothing to indicate that he's figured anything else out except for taking an extra shot here and there. But that's not enough to think that this is going to last. But Elon, would I drop Pierre-Luc Dubois before Trevor Moore? Yes, I would.
Okay, that's an easy one. But I think on the flip side, I think another easy one is we've got at this point like Byfield over Trevor Moore, right? Like it seems like Byfield is finally like having his big breakout. really just like shot up from nothing, right? Like last 3 seasons or 2 seasons, he's like been basic, like not rosterable in any league. And now this year, he's just crushing it on the top line, top power play, 21 points in 25 games, taking like a lot more shots. He used to be like a one shot a game, like at best kind of guy last season. Uh, Also, he's only 21 years old. You'd expect Byfield to just continue to get better. So I got to give some kudos to Victor, who even when Byfield was struggling those first 2 years, Victor Nuno was still saying like, I still believe it's going to be. And like these like power forward type guys, whatever, like take a little longer. I don't know. Maybe you'll disagree, Brian, but I'm beating myself up a little bit for not grabbing Byfield for cheap like I could have either. I think he was probably in free agency to start this season.
He was. I got him. I'm very happy about it.
Ah,
And the thing that we've said about Byfield is like through the year was, he was known to not take a lot of shots, and he sort of started the season doing his thing. Although instead of 1 and 0 shot games, it was 3 and 0 shot games. And with Byfield, we were saying, yeah, the assists are nice, but we'd really like him to add shots to the picture. And boy, has he done that this season. Coming into tonight's game against the Rangers, he had 4 or more shots in 4 of his last 5, which is fantastic. Of course, 4 goals on like his last 9 shots, or in a four. There was a stretch of 3 games where Byfield had 4 goals on 9 shots, and that's not quite going to last. And I'm not about to like herald his for sure arrival, but he looks great, and those shots continue to come, and I like that a lot.
yeah. I think if it would be really fun to see a 2020 redraft now. I think there's a decent chance Byfield holds that second overall, right? Stutzla goes first. And then I guess it's between like Byfield, Lafreniere has obviously had a bounce back this year. Jake Sanderson is good. Cole Perfetti's had a breakout. So yeah, Seth Jarvis has been good. But I think there's an argument now for Byfield to get up there, especially because you just wonder if he still has more to show. Okay, let's go. I actually had Kurashev down as a cold streak, Brian, but he scored 2 goals today. So flip that around. Kurashev is maybe somebody you wanted to. I mean, so he's probably just going to keep running hot
This
and
is
cold,
it.
right?
This is exactly it. That's Philip Kurashev. So I'm glad. I'm almost glad it happened, Dylan, because now like this illustrates. Yes, you can win, and yes, you can lose with Philip Kurashev. He didn't have
Yeah.
2 goals, by the way, 2 points, goal and assist.
Oh, I think of the first. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, yeah. Assisted on a Connor Murphy goal. But yeah, Berdard, a couple assists today. Good for him. He's probably gonna win the Calder. It's not a hot take. Petr Mrazek, Brian, has had 2 straight amazing games for Chicago. Speaking of the Blackhawks, before that he was struggling a bit, but Mrazek, yeah, looking really good. I got a big goalie comparison. Okay, I'm gonna throw a bunch of goalies at you that we've talked about. Who would you grab at this point? Like, let's say for a month. Like, I'm not gonna say for the rest of the season, but like for the foreseeable future. Mrazek, or you can get Joey Decord, who right now is going to be the starter for a while with Grubauer hurt. Devin Levi, who's been looking good, but Luukkonen could come back. You could have Dustin Wolf, who's probably out there, and like we said, he's probably going to get some starts with Calgary. How does Mrazek fit in with those guys who are probably in free agency for a lot of people?
I'd put him around. Like it seems like the Chicago's really set on just alternating him with Arvid Soderblom. Like because I don't know what Chicago wants from Soderblom. I guess he's young. He's 24 years old. Maybe they think this is part of his development. But 36% quality starts. That's very bad. 884 save percentage. He lost again today. Like there's not a whole lot of great work from Soderblom, but he still basically gets every other start. So I'm all of this context to say that I think Mrazek is probably only going to at best start once every other game. Maybe sometimes he'll get 2 as a treat, and he'll rarely win also. So I would go with like probably Levi first, and then well maybe Wolf because he has less competition. I'd have Wolf and Levi, and then I'd have Mrazek, and then the other guy I'm so uninterested in, I forget who it is. Oh, Decord. I'm not so uninterested in him, but I feel like there's a decent chance he'll share with Driedger, but he'll win more than Mrazek. So Mrazek at the bottom. How about that?
Okay.
I'll take Charlie Lindgren above most of these guys, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's looking
Yeah.
good. Well, Mrazek is looking good lately. But yeah, still the wins might be a little hard to come by unless he gets shutouts. That always helps. All right, Brian, we're gonna end with a bunch of hot streaks. Okay. Players that are hot on hot streaks and are maybe available for people to add. We're gonna start in San Jose. Let's take our final break and we'll be back in just a sec. All right, Brian, we are back. And yeah, I want to go to the Sharks. We had a question from Sam mentioning that the Sharks are heating up lately. Yeah, they're not like this pushover team that they started the season as. And, Tomas Hertl looking great. We've talked about Mikhail Granlund and his like surprising run. Granlund had a goal and 2 assists versus Detroit on what was it, Thursday? Bringing him now to 9 points in his last 4 games. So that's just insane. I think it's like very obvious. I think Granlund's probably taken in a lot of leagues, but I think even in your 10-team leagues, who was the person who was asking about a 10-team league? Oh yeah, Mason Marchment. At this point, give me Granlund, just run the streak. Like
Oh
I'm not saying he's
yeah,
going to be a season long hold. Yeah.
same. Granlund, and I just like he and Nyquist are like the same person.
But yeah, let's say Granlund's gone because he's on such a heater that like why wouldn't he be? Maybe the next guy to look at is William Eklund, who specifically was asked about here, yeah, by Sam. And Eklund is on a streak himself, 5 points in his last 4 games. He's playing on the top line and top power play with Tomas Hertl, 5 shots in that last game versus Detroit. If you missed out on Granlund, how excited would you be to jump on Eklund, who is a seventh overall pick from a couple of years ago? I remember at the time, a lot of people were saying he might even have the highest. That's the Owen Power draft. A lot of people were saying maybe Eklund actually has the highest offensive upside for fantasy. What do we think?
Yeah, why not? Right? Like I don't have like a deep take here on Eklund aside from he's producing with good deployment. And I'll even just throw out another guy in San Jose with Alex Barabanov, who is doing that thing again where he's on a 3-game point streak. He's barely shooting. He's not consistently on the top power play. He's actually seems to have lost the top power play role that he had when he started the season, but he missed a lot of time, right? When I say 3 game point streak, this is just since coming back from injury. He was out. He's been out. The last time he played had been October 24th before returning on December 3rd. And so he's someone that I think is also worth keeping an eye on in deep enough leagues.
Yeah, we're getting to a point where you just kind of want people playing with Hertl while Hertl is rolling. Shams is saying in the chat here that Eklund is injured and out for the game. What? Okay.
and Elon responded, "Didn't the game just start?" And Shams responded, "Yes."
Eklund came out for warmups and seeing Shang Peng here. Came out for warmups, but must not have felt good enough. All right. Well, yeah. Now grab Eklund, throw him in your IR. There you go.
Sometimes I go into work and I'm not feeling good enough. I still do my job though.
Wow. Well, I guess there's not like a bunch of professional replacements just sitting waiting for their opportunity.
Oh yeah, that would be scary. I wouldn't. all credit to William Eklund then.
Okay, so let's go to another player that we had a question about, Brock Faber. Michael wanted us to talk about him. Looks like he might potentially be taking the top power play over in Minnesota. That's how it looked in the last game. Let's see. Today, Minnesota is playing against Seattle. It's 1-0 for Minnesota after a period and no power plays. So who knows? I don't know. Faber and Spurgeon both got a lot of power play time in the last game. But let's give some credit here to Brock Faber, who is now up to 12 points in 26 games on the year, had 2 assists in the previous game before today versus Edmonton, playing like a ton of ice time at even strength. Like even just forget about the power play. He had like a 26-minute game, like 25 plus. So this Brock Faber is getting leaned on hard. Yeah. Any interest, Brian, in fantasy for Brock Faber?
Not really. Like big minutes and a 40-point pace as a 21-year-old rookie defenseman isn't nothing. So props to Brock Faber for that. And hey, if he can find his way onto the Minnesota top unit, we'll see if he becomes the first to produce there since Marek Zalewski did all those years ago. But there's no real peripherals to speak of from Brock Faber. So that's the downside. While you just, unless time on ice is a category in your league, I don't see him helping you a ton, but he's not a bad guy to just pop on your watch list just in case you do see him ascend to the top power play.
Okay, and Brian, I'm going to take another oopsie here, looking at the accountability, because a month ago, Philip Gustafsson was having a brutal start to the year. We were talking about how he was as bad as Jack Campbell had been. You said you still believe and you'd hold on. Apparently, I said I think it's okay to drop. Maybe for a little while that was correct, but definitely lately Gustafsson has turned things around in a big way. He's had now 4 straight starts with 2 or 1 goals against. We'll see how today goes. Shut out the first period for what it's worth. So Gustafsson has been great. Probably not available for anyone anymore, but Brian, yeah, kudos on you for telling people to hold the fort with him because he's been fantastic.
You, yeah.
Phew.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, like I wasn't like so right though. I'm not going to totally take like Gustafsson hasn't been as bad in the last month as he was before that. But he was so bad at the start. So like the bar is low for Gustafsson to clear. And he's still, I have to say, like, yes, he's had a couple good starts lately, but he still hasn't shown himself to be consistently reliable. So I'm waiting on that. And in the meantime, maybe he starts like 2 of 3 and is inconsistent, and that's okay. Like that could work for you in some formats.
Okay, let's go to the Flyers now. They're really good. This is a team that's looking like a playoff team right now. We'll see if they can continue this. Obviously, being helped big time by Travis Konechny, who's just a straight up superstar. He's had 2 straight 2 goal games now against Colorado and Arizona. Had a 2 assist game before that. Had a 2 assist game a couple games before that. This is just multi-point Travis Konechny having. He had a bit of a cold stretch at the start of November, but yeah, coming out very strong in December and helping Philly win these games. Of course, another person that's helping Philly win these games is Carter Hart. Holy cow, what a season Carter Hart is having. He's up to a 919 save percentage after he stoned the Avalanche yesterday, 2 goals against on 38 shots. Previous to that, he beat Connor Ingram and the Coyotes, letting only 1 goal in on 26 shots. You know, Carter Hart for a few seasons now, I have memories of him like starting strong and then completely falling off as Philly turns into a complete train wreck. Do you think that this year will finally be different? Like, is Philly as good as they seem lately? And is Carter Hart actually the like volume starting goalie on a good goalie on a good team that's going to play a lot, like basically the pinnacle of what you want in a goalie in fantasy, or are things about to come crashing down to some extent? And now would be a great time to get off of Carter Hart and trade him for like a UC Saros or like a really nice sell high for a goalie that's been struggling.
Yeah, Philadelphia's definitely outperformed expectations. Actually, like so one way I check team quality is I see expected goals for percentage. So what percentage of expected goals for while like during gameplay does a team have? Philadelphia ranks fifth in this metric. Like they're amongst the elite. Like it's LA. It's like yes, like we've been drooling over LA all season. Edmonton, Carolina, Dallas, Philadelphia, then New Jersey, Florida, Colorado, Vegas, and then Calgary. Like there's not any imposters up there. And it does make me wonder exactly just how great Philadelphia is and if they are. Like John Tortorella for coach of the year, like shoe in, right? It's crazy what he's done there. If he can take credit for it. But Travis Konechny also deserves a lot of the credit. Like I love the guy. Like I've boosted him for many times. I hate him this week. He wrecked me in the cupful. I was very unhappy about it, but looks pretty steady from his numbers last year. 73-point pace so far this year versus last year's 83-point pace. But I see room to grow from power play scoring. So if you find anyone trying to sell high on Konechny, I would be happy to buy low or high or whatever he is right now for Travis Konechny. Carter Hart, yeah, he could be a volume starter on a good team, which we weren't expecting to be able to say. He had a crazy good week also against me in the cupful. Very annoyed. Just 4 goals against in 3 games that Hart played, facing 32, 26, and 38 shots. So some pretty outstanding performances. We'll see if he can keep it up, but the team in front of him is doing quite well.
Yeah, and like an interesting thing about Tortorella, I can't believe I don't even know if this is a compliment or not. I'll just say it's interesting and novel. Like Sanheim was the top power play defenseman for a while. Then all of a sudden he was just like, you know what? I think he's like, being overworked. He's like struggling a little. So they took him off the power play like completely. So Sanheim's hasn't been on either power play. And instead, so Cam York has gotten onto the top power play. And now all of a sudden, I think Cam York becomes kind of interesting in fantasy, right? Like York had a goal and this is versus Arizona, no points versus Colorado, but 3 blocks. And York's had like 3+ blocks in like all of his games recently. Like he's been really solid for blocks to give you that peripheral floor. And he's a top power play guy. So, I mean, what more do you want as like a defense? If you need defense, take the guy that's giving you the sure blocks and now has the opportunity to get points on the top power play with Konechny.
Yeah, that was the knock on York going into the season. Those are the 2 knocks. Philly's bad, and he doesn't do anything except, get an occasional point. And Cam York, like now, neither of those things are true. So you could go ahead and add Cam York.
Yeah, and Sanheim is tricky, right? He had a big game yesterday against Colorado, but if he's not getting any power play time, obviously you're not too happy. But also, it's Tortorella; he could change his mind like in a day. Like he could be back on the top power play. Maybe I think I saw some tweet about how like he wants to get Sanheim to the Christmas break where he's gonna have some time off to rest. So maybe it's gonna be like if Sanheim's in free agency, then grab him before like they come back after the break because maybe then he gets back on the top power play. Who knows? Trying to read this guy's mind. Okay, let's go to some hot streaks over on Vancouver. Brian, all season long we've been talking about the Leafs and talking about like Nyes and Bertuzzi as like those like third wheels on their respective lines with superstars. I think now on Vancouver we have to have the same conversation about currently not Andrei Kuzmenko, who hasn't been there, but instead Sam Lafferty and Nils Höglander, because they're both respectively getting in on time with either. So Lafferty is the one with Pedersen, and then Höglander has been the one with Besser and JT Miller, and both of them have been getting some points lately. Lafferty had an assist and a goal, I think, in the last game. Okay, I've got it up now. 5 points in his last 4 games for Sam Lafferty. Yeah, 2 points yesterday versus Carolina. Also had a 2-point game against Calgary recently. So he's doing well and also hits a ton. So if your league counts hits, like obviously he doesn't hit as much when you look at his game log when he was only playing like 11 minutes a game. But now that he's been on the top line with Elias Pettersson, he's getting a lot of ice time. I guess he's banging people around to give Pettersson and Mikheyev some room. And then also he's getting in on some goals. So he's very interesting. And then, yeah, Niels Höglander, who's someone that had a bit of a pedigree like coming into the league and then sort of became irrelevant in fantasy. But this year, or at least recently, he's got points in 3 straight. Again, playing on a good line. Do you have a preference or are you into either of these guys as streams while they're in these great spots?
Yeah, I'll try out. I'll try either of them. Honestly, I mean, we've seen. I'm looking through the rest of the Vancouver depth chart, and I'm seeing like Phil DiGiuseppe and Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland and Andrei Kuzmenko. Like we've seen guys be in these places and not be worth holding. And Lafferty, 3 goals on his last 7 shots. So that's why he's doing so great. But I also saw someone saying like, yeah, he looks good too. And Hoglander had 2 goals on 5 shots too to go on this nice little run. So both don't seem terribly sustainable. But if you are in a deep enough league and you're looking for a third wheel, these are them in Vancouver right now.
Yeah, and they're doing better than the Toronto third wheels are. So I'll take Lafferty and Hoglander over Bertuzzi and Nyes currently. I guess also the question is like versus Kuzmenko because Kuzmenko's still on the top power play, but I'm not that into him.
Yeah, I'd drop Kuzmenko. Holding on to him just seems like a burden, right?
Yeah,
like he could step up and do better, but he's entered that zone where you are just holding him in case he does better later, which like I'm doing with Troy Terry in a league, and I get it.
he just got a power play assist today.
Yeah, there you go. So I was right.
But not Kuzmenko. We didn't play today, to be fair. But he wouldn't have.
So no, absolutely not.
Anaheim scored a second goal. Oh, no Troy Terry on that one. Okay.
Was Killorn on it?
No Killorn. Adam Henrique from Silfverberg and Radko Gudas.
That's boring.
Not too interesting.
It's not like it's almost a schmoll, but not quite.
I mean, it pretty much is, except for if it's a bangers league and people have Gudas for not that reason.
It's a schmoll today. It wouldn't have been a schmoll a year ago.
Yeah, or like 6-7 years ago, Henrique and Silfverberg were pretty solid.
Well,
go back
Silfverberg
to old
was
episodes.
Never that great.
He was good on the Sens for a little. I don't know. Let's bring up Jacob Silfverberg's career.
He didn't play much with the Sens.
I remember being like,
there's a big goal he scored. There was a lot of talk about him. There was a song.
He had 49 points in 79 games one year with Anaheim. That was only 1 year with Ottawa. For some reason, I remember a big history with him. All right, where are we here? Oh, the Sharks just scored a goal. I guess I don't have time for this. I don't know why I'm just like scoreboard watching now. Mario Ferraro. There's a schmoll for you. Oh, but McGranlund got an assist. Okay.
Mario Ferraro can put up some peripherals sometimes.
Yeah. So Ferraro and Gudas both getting you points, even though they're mainly rostered for peripherals. Let's go to Vegas, Brian. I have a question for you because Ivan Barbashev, we talked about last week, being on the top line with Eichel and Mark Stone, like a really great spot to be. And then also Vegas had a good schedule last week, right? Like they started Monday, Wednesday. So I'm pretty sure I was just like, just go grab Barbashev, get the Monday, Wednesday, and then you reassess. That was my plan. I did that. The thing is then the time comes where you actually do have to reassess, and it's hard because he had an assist or no, he had no point. Okay, sorry. But then it's hard because then he oh wait, oh, why do I have Stevenson up? No wonder. I was like looking at these stats and being like, that's not the person that I meant to click on. Okay. I'm just gonna start that over again. Sorry. Let's go to Vegas next. Brian, I got to ask you about Ivan Barbashev because we talked about him last week. We were saying he's in a great spot playing on that top line with Stone and Eichel. And also, Vegas was going into a week where they played Monday, Wednesday. So my advice is just go grab Barbashev, get the Monday, Wednesday, and then you can always reassess, figure out after that. The problem is then the time comes where you actually do have to do the reassessment. And it's tricky because he's been really good. He had an assist versus Washington. Really good. He didn't get any points on the Monday versus St. Louis, but he took 4 shots. Then he had 2 assists on the next game versus St. Louis. And then Barbashev got another point versus Dallas. And then I guess is Vegas. Yeah, Vegas is playing today. So, or no, they're not. Oh, that's the whole season. Ugh, I'm blowing it here at the end. Okay. Had 2 assists in this. Yeah, had 2 assists in that second game versus St. Louis, and then he had an assist in the next game. So all of a sudden, Barbashev still on that top line. He's on a point streak. We're going into this next week now. Is he a hold? Like, do people who streamed him in for the schedule now just have to be like, I guess I'm holding this guy because he's just continuing to get points. He continues to be on the top line. Seems like it would be a weird decision to drop him right now. Vegas is playing today. We'll see how he does in this 4th game of the week.
Yeah, sometimes guys you add to stream end up forcing your hand, and Barbashev is doing that with a great little run with great deployment. So yeah, I wouldn't drop him. This is how I ended up with Byfield, right? Like I didn't plan on adding him for the season. It was a short-term stream.
There you go. On the flip side, on Vegas, Pietrangelo is super cold. I've been starting to see people asking about whether or not there was actually someone in the chat earlier today. Corey was saying, like, what are we going to do with Pietrangelo? Because like Theodore is hurt. And so the idea was then for sure you want Pietrangelo because he's got a lock on that top power play. But he only has, what am I counting here? 3 points in 14 games now for Pietrangelo. That's brutal. And not even that many hits and blocks.
Yeah, that's not great. William Karlsson, by the way, still doing well. 5 points in his last 4 games. The shots have like sort of fallen off, which is what we use to really justify thinking that he would keep stuff up. But good for him. Like I was ready to sort of like we're waiting for the moment because I think it's going to happen where you'll be snoozing on him, but that moment hasn't come yet.
Yeah, I like him. I don't know. I think that William Karlsson, as long as he's on the top power play, is interesting to me. Pietrangelo, I would hold. Like, it just seems weird to drop him, but I don't know what's going on. But if he's going to stick on the top power play, then yeah, I feel like you have to hold. Just hope that it turns around. That's what I would do. And I would add him if he's been dropped. Sometimes you just got to do that and then hope that it turns around. Defensemen are also harder to get. I don't know. Anyway, Brian, let's go to a couple more hot streaks. We can do just a quick ones to end the show here. Over in Tampa Bay, out of nowhere, Anthony Cirelli is all of a sudden rolling pretty nicely. He's on a line, and at least in the last game, with Nick Paul and Alex Barré-Boulet, which isn't exciting, but somehow he's got 6 points in his last 4 games.
I'll tell you how.
Okay, tell me.
He's got 4 goals on his last 13 shots.
Fair, but 4, 3, 3, and 3 shots in his last 4 games. If he keeps that up, that's pretty valuable.
It's uncharacteristic for Cirelli. Sometimes he does this. And I know I say that about guys sometimes, but I say it about Cirelli every time. And I have yet to be wrong.
You're confident that in a month, if Trev comes back and tells us what happened with Cirelli, you'll be right that it wasn't going to be a guy worth holding.
Yeah, within 2 weeks.
Okay, and then I think it's going to be the same here for K'Andre Miller, who I think I've had this conversation with you a few times. Whenever he runs hot, you say it's not going to last. He had a stretch of 4 points in 4 games. Pointless today versus LA, so it's already going away. So I'm sure you're not surprised.
No. We don't expect offense from K'Andre Miller, and that's okay. That's just not his thing at this moment in his career. I'm open to him doing more, but I'm not sure it'll happen. He's only 23. Right? He turns 24 in January. So there's room for him to grow, but I've never really seen him as someone who's going to become like a big offensive defenseman, especially behind Adam Fox.
All right. So Brian, with that, that's our slate for the show. I've had a really fun time going through everyone with you. Great job. I think that you've given Trev a lot of fun things to look back on in a month and all the listeners. I think that I don't know. I think this was one of our best ever episodes, if I do say so myself. But
Wow.
we'll leave that to the listeners to decide. As if we ever get like reviews like that. It's like we drop an episode and I'm like, that was such a good one. And then right away we just get a tweet. I'm like, ooh, a tweet. There must be someone about to compliment the episode. Then it's like, so do you think I should drop Sean Dursey for Cam York? Then I'll be like, maybe. But also, what'd you think of the? Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm not pandering by the way for compliments. I'm gonna instead take my pandering time and pander for you to become a patron of Keeping Karlsson if you like the show. I'll take those as my compliments. We hope you want to support us, and so we can continue putting out this content. And in exchange, we give you as many perks as we can come up with. Right? We've got our amazing community. We've got these like live shows that you can come join. A monthly patron cast, which I guess Brian, we probably have to schedule. That'll come like near the end of December. You could join the Cupful wait list and likely get in. We've been having some openings coming up, and we could use a few more people in the wait list to make sure Kevin will have someone to offer those spots to as they come. We want to make sure Cupful leagues are always active and there's not ever just someone that has disappeared. So if you're interested in any of that and or just supporting this podcast that you've just spent the last couple hours listening to, check out keepingkarlsson.com/patron, and we would appreciate it. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. And why don't we go ahead and read the credits and get us out of here?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters. Top Cheese, welcome. You are the top cheese. We appreciate you and your new super support. Roman, Don, Michael, Jordan, Patrick, Aaron, Philip, Ivan, Sammy, Andrea, who just in the chat said this was the best show ever. So there's
Woo!
some instant feedback from a super Zach. Yeah, and it's true because anything a super supporter says is true. Zachary, Tom, Ryan, David, Max, Ricard, Patty. Thank you all. I really enjoy like that list getting longer. Thank you all. We appreciate it. Thank you to Kevin Hebert, our co-op coordinator and Lord of the Bots. It's still an amazing season, and the Cupful. We've been making a lot of calls out for the wait list. I don't know how like immediate it will be, but if you want to join, you might as well line up now because, as we've said, in January, so usually after the new year, there's some what do you call them? Reclamation projects that could be there for you. It's like an extra little added challenge. Thank you, Shams and Elon, for all you do at GameDayTweets.com, keeping all the fantasy news we need to know coming, both at GameDayTweets.com and on our patrons only Discord server. You can follow the Short Shifts crew, Shams, Lewis, and Jeremy at Short Shifts KK. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoldies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
All right. Great job as always, Brian. And I'm looking forward to a couple of short shifts coming up to whatever. Short shifts coming up. Lewis, Shams, and Jeremy bringing it every single week. And so those are going to come. You'll get another matchup maximizer next Saturday. If you didn't check out my episode from yesterday, threw out a lot of names for you of players with good schedules next week. And then, Brian, in a week, we'll be back with our next mega show. What should we all be doing while we wait to see what's going to happen in the NHL and what we're going to talk about in a week from now?
Please keep doing all you can while you're enjoying the game of fantasy hockey to make sure that you are doing things to help make sure that it is for a lot of double speak here. Basically, make fantasy hockey for everyone. Please and thank you.
Do you want to keep that or do you want to do it again?
No, it's fine. I don't care.
Okay. That was great. All right. Thanks. You just brought it down from the best show ever, not second best. Because it didn't have that like smooth ending.
Do you want me to retake
I'm just
it?
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'll retake it.
I'm joshing you.
Here, I'm gonna give you a retake just in case you listen, you hate it.
I'm not gonna listen.
What should we do? Make fantasy hockey for everyone.
Thank you.
Just do that, please.
Great. Yeah.
All right.
This was a blast.
Good
job.
Hope
you get a good sleep tonight.
Ooh,
thanks everyone for watching.
Too. All right. Good night. I hope you get a good sleep tonight.
We'll see. It's not up to me.
Same.
Like, yeah. Like I'm a good sleeper unless someone is like screaming and waking me up. So I have that at least in my favor.
What happened is like, I think I was used enough to life like that. And there's just been like a bit of a recent wave and like my bot, like I can't go back.
Anyway. Well,
Yeah.
I wish you nothing but the best. Yeah, I hope it works
Thank
out
you.
because like maybe there's some ideas I could come up with off air that will then if I think of something, I'll let you know.
I really appreciate that.
Okay, well, let's all wish Brian a really nice sleep. And yeah, thanks everyone again.